Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. I'm your host, Dag and Dagster Moriarty. It's good to see everybody. Just look. We got a special one for you today. Look out here. All right. First of all, the tri-state trifecta, I'm realizing. We got Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania in the house.
Sure.
Arguably the most important states in the Northeast. I don't know who would think differently than that, right? New York be damned. And look at what else we got. You guys hear those voices. The double dragons of dukedom in the house with me today. First, I'm going to go to that smile. Look at that smile beaming on this Friday. Mr. Matty plays. I haven't seen him in a while. Matty.
It's been a while.
It's great to see you, dude.
It's great to see you as well, man. Thank you for having me, Dagan. I've missed you dearly, so it's good to have you here.
Missed you guys.
Yeah,
really
excited for this show. We got some good topics lined up as always, so I'm pumped.
Nice. Thanks for being here, my friend. The other brother, the other good old Duke boy, Lord Cognito. Here come the Lords.
Here come the Lord. Oh, what you going about there?
Cog, what's going on, my dude?
Chief Rocket #1, Chief Rocket. That's a look, young man. You don't know about those Lords of the Underground.
Smiling and nodding, guys.
That was an OG reference right there. Dags with we got the triple Ds. We got Defining Duke and the Dagster. Triple D situation going on right now. So salute. Good to be. But first of all, good to see you. Obviously, we talked, offline, and again, missed you and seeing everything is okay. So it's good to kind of catch up with you.
100%.
Yeah, got some good topics. And my homie Matty's here. So yeah, we got some fun and steady, man.
Love this energy. I love it. Yeah, it's so good to see you guys. I was away too long. But as I was saying to Cog before we started rolling, this is my 4th episode back already. How fast is time? It's insane how fast time goes. It's nuts.
Yeah, especially when you're podcasting. Like, especially in this time of year, it's kind of the worst. We're starting at 1. Constellation is usually like a 3-hour show. And by the time we're done, it's going to be starting to get dark out now.
I know.
The worst
I've
feeling,
been noticing this.
The worst feeling.
It's a whole different energy now than, just a few months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The weather's been beautiful. I don't know. We're all tri-state here, right? So dude, it's been out of a simulation. I have not seen a cloud in 2 weeks. It's
so weird.
Unbelievable. Like, I'll just step out and I'm usually not that guy. Maybe I'm getting older where I'm like, oh, the weather's so nice today. But it's really livening me up. Like, I step outside, I'm like, wow, this is wonderful. Yeah.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah.
It's nice. Warmer than usual, too.
Yeah, warmer. 100%. Like, dude, the longer I can go without throwing on that Starfield jumper that they gave us last year, Cog, that's like my go-to winter coat for like walking the dogs and everything. The longer I can go without throwing that thing on, the better, man. Because once it's brick out, then I'm a very sad, angry man.
Yeah, I haven't had to bust out the winter coat yet at any level. So yeah, you're right. We're getting a chance to rock out longer with this weather.
It's crazy. Yeah. I'm trying to savor it, but I'm wondering what happens on the other side of this. For you guys who don't know, the Northeast has been unseasonably warm. It's like an extension. Sometimes it feels like summer, but at least spring. And I think I just heard yesterday in Philadelphia, October has been a record month there's been no rain. I mean, it feels like it hasn't rained here in months, but I don't think it's rained here in October at all so far.
Wow.
But I wonder what's going to happen on the other side of this. Are we going to get slammed with a very brutal winter? Like, is this setting us up for something?
Northeast is all about balance, right? We never just get it good every season, right? It's like, well, you had a good summer, so guess what? You're going to get an awful winter now. It's
we have
always
to pay,
one or the other.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the Catholic guilt of weather. It's something like that. Now, listen, before we jump in, I was talking to you gents briefly before we started here, just a tiny bit of house cleaning. And Colin and Michael may want to say more, but just we're hitting you off with a little news with Constellation, nothing terrible. There's an idea in the offing to make Constellation, or at least experiment with, trying to make this a 3-man/woman show as opposed to 4-person show. So we're rolling out a little experiment here. This is why Colin was going to be on the show today. Then sort of at the last minute, Colin and Micah had this kind of brainstorm, this brainchild to say, you know what, let's see if we can make Constellation a 3-man thing. Mm-hmm. And I like it. I like the energy of having 4 people. But as Matty was saying before we started up here, over here, I think being able to explore 3 meaty topics as opposed to 4 and really being able to get in the weeds with each one would help things breathe a little bit. And ironically, I don't know if you guys know this, I think 2 of the last 4 shows, I didn't even do my topic. I saved it to last because the show was going so long that I was like, all right, this is getting unreasonable. And, you know, I'm a big fan of 4 and 5 hour podcasts, but I know that's a bridge too far for a lot of people. So we're just trying something new. But I know that Colin and Michael want your feedback. Let us know what you think of the idea. But I think it could be, you know, as Matty and Cog and I were saying before the show, I think it could be a fruitful thing. I think this could be a positive thing.
For sure.
Absolutely. And more to look forward to when you have less people. It's like, you know, who are you a fan of? Where's Locke? Where's Dustin? You know what I mean? Again, kind of a little string you along with the carrot a little bit. I think the fans are too spoiled. Right? So this is a good pulling it back a little bit. Yeah, and that's about it. So let us know what you think of that. It might take a while, 3 or 4 shows to get, you know, a cadence to see what you think, how we do, and also what you guys think of it. And that being said, I think we're going to roll right into the topics. I didn't know exactly where to start today, but Matty, I think I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
You had a fun one. Yeah, take it away, my dude.
All right. Yeah, my topic is personal reflections, and we can hit this at any angle, boys. But the way I came to this is, you know, I review a lot of video games, and so my look in the mirror moment was born from playing something, because I don't remember when Constellation goes out, so I'll not name the game, but playing something for review that I really wasn't liking. And it, you know, this is the second time this month that I played something from like a favorite developer of mine, where they have, you know, growing up my whole life, produced some of my favorite things ever. And I feel like I'm the target audience for what they're making. And when I walk away from it, not only just not liking it, but or not enjoying it, I should say, but also just flat out being like, that wasn't good at all in a lot of ways. You know, I have that look in the mirror moment where I'm like, am I becoming jaded? Is there a problem with me? You know, it brought upon that level of self-reflection. I feel like entertainment does that to me a lot, especially when you're feeling like you might be an outlier. I don't know. You know, that's the weird part about reviews. You never know if you're going to come in with the hot take. There have been times I've come storming in with a take that I'm like, everyone's going to be thinking this, and then I'm on an island. I always go back to Deathloop. That was my crowning moment of like, I was so confident that I was going to be like there with an army of people saying like, this is way worse than any Arcane game. And obviously I was completely by myself on that. But it's in those, since that moment, it is when I'm reviewing a game, if I'm like not liking something, I think to that moment and I reflect and I'm like, am I getting too negative? Like, cause that's the thing, is the YouTube beast can like conjure those feelings in anyone, even if you don't realize it. And I try to always be cognizant of that. And, you know, my kind of takeaway was just like outgrowing certain companies, and that you love the memory of them, but what they're making now isn't very exciting to you, isn't very good. And that there are now other, in my case, game developers making the things that are targeted for me. When I go and play those and I love those, I'm like, no, I'm not jaded. It's just an exception of like that this old dog doesn't have it anymore. Right. And it's a bummer for sure. And it I don't know, it's caused me to reflect at times. And I don't know if you guys have entertainment that's made you reflect in a number of ways, because I can just bounce around and it's like, that's one of like, am I jaded? Then there's like a Persona 5 Royal. I've said a number of times, like I played it and I had to look in the mirror moment. I'm like, what are you doing with your life, dude? It's like, all you do is like make YouTube videos. Is that all you want to do? Like just talk to a camera and just fade out and that's it? Like, do you want to do more? And it really was a moment where like a piece of entertainment just got me questioning. Like, I had it good. Like, I was not like a extremely busy person. I was playing games for a living and talking about them. I had a solid income. And I was like, oh no, I want more, not more money, by the way, but like more in the terms of like impact. And I want to strive to do more for personal and creative satisfaction. And like, that's a moment that was kind of brought at me by a game. Same thing happened when I watched Blade Runner for the first time. I was like, holy smokes, man. Like, it's a thing that makes your head spin. Like, how do you make something like that? And then you look at the things you've made and go like, are you thinking on that level? Are you going deep enough? So I could go on, but I want to hear your guys' stories, if any at all, on things you've played or watched or participated in. And if they've given you a moment of reflection, whatever that reflection may be, like I said, it doesn't have to be a game. It could be anything. But Cog, I know you said you had stories lined up. There's a little backstory here. I was pitching a second topic. I was like, oh, I think I might want to do this. And Cog's like, no, man, I was ready for your topic, dude. So I want to hear from Lord Cognito on where he is at with my topic.
No, I like your topic because first, excuse me, they're doing construction underneath, so I apologize if you hear wild sounds. It's not my stomach; it's them doing things. So I apologize. But no, look, it's a great conversation because I love how you started with yours as far as self-reflection, as far as how something affects you and how it may change you. And a lot of obviously, my love for the fighting games, Dagan knows specifically. And, a lot of that birthed from my competitive nature in conjunction with, I'll be honest, people don't realize I have a very bad temper. Like a lot of people would not know that about me because they see me now. They see Lord Cognito where I have evolved to, but it was really bad and to the point where, it would affect friendships and because I'm so competitive. And when I look at fighting, especially a game like Tekken, where for us in the crew, Tekken was life. We would do a whole Iron Man style competitive tournament with every single one of us. It would take a Saturday. It would be me, Sov, King, his younger brother, Kaibatsu, the whole crew. And we'd run these Iron Man competitions where it's like, I'm going to fight you. And we're going to continue to fight each other until there's a 10 fight advantage. And at that point, that person is crowned the winner. It's the war of attrition. Right? So it's the consistent mix-ups, who's better, who's going to mentally break, right? And this thing would get serious. And I prided myself in this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I was the guy. Right? I was known as the guy that eventually I'm going to find a way to figure you out. And then I'm going to assert my dominance and I am going to be the best person in the room, right? So that went on for a while. And I remember I became a teacher of sort because I really love fighting. To me, I treat it like martial arts, like like the old dojos, the master. You got to come talk to me.
Dude, I love it.
So everything was like a 70s karate flick for me, right? So I'm the guy. Okay, this is what you got to see. You got to work on your counters. You got to work on your mix up. You're good, but you need to do this. And I was so talented enough that I could still be good at my game and then teach others. So and that's how I bring other people in. So this is where I'm getting at it. The self-reflection came in one of my prize pupils, Lord Kaibatsu. And I remember teaching him, like, man, he's really good. And the thing about him is he's like a computer. He's like a data analyst. You continue to do things, he's going to pick up on your patterns immediately and then shut you down. And if you are not able to adapt to him adapting, you're in trouble. So I remember the next tournament we did, it's down to me and him. And he broke the kid. And he got the 10 fight streak. And I was like, hey, yo. Wow. So we get out the room. So we did it so hardcore, like a cage match. Everyone leaves the room and just those two people fight. So then after the fight's over, he leaves the room. So everybody's like, yeah, Cog. And I'm like, nah. Come out. So they was like, you beat Cog? What? Like people, and he was crying, and I had to eat that. And my ego.
That's tough.
I was so bruised. I was so embarrassed. I was hurt. I was like, how did I lose? Like, what happened? And then I started blaming the game, and I started blaming the character. It's unfair. Harang doesn't have Jin is the cover of the box character. They're like, I was going through it, right? And I was like, okay, I got to check myself. After about a week of this, I was like, this is ridiculous. He is better than you right now. And you have to accept this. Mm-hmm. And either you're going to do one or two things. You're going to complain, you're going to pout, or are you going to sit there and try to legit learn for what's happening and study and what's going on? And a lot of it became my ability to adapt and my ego and really, testing myself. So then, maybe a month later or whatever, when we ran it again, and I was able to beat him. But I learned so much about myself. You know what I'm saying? Mental toughness. I meant, basically not being so comfortable that or egotistical that you yourself can't learn and adapt and be better. And it really, it had affected our friendship, but it ended up affecting it in a positive way, because now we really, like, I have so much respect for him. You know what I'm saying? And he pushed me to my limit, something I never thought I could be capable of, and then turn that kind of thing around. So yeah, that was it for me. I mean, fighting games for me, and I feel bad for people who don't play them, because it really builds character, and it really builds mental toughness and the ability to put yourself out there. Because I feel what happens in this generation is that a lot of people are scared of being embarrassed.
Oh,
and it's more, yeah, right,
Yeah.
Matty? And it's more so in this generation, because I feel bad for, no disrespect, Matty, you guys, because with my generation, you lost. That's it, right? Okay. But you put yourself out there. It was like, hey, you put yourself out there. You live to fight another day. You don't worry. You did that. You competed, right? This generation, they'll like put you on the screen. They'll retweet. You're on YouTube. Look how he got
you lose
this
on the grandest stage, no matter who your name is, bro.
So now me and King has this conversation. Like, now it forces people to not want to compete, because they don't even want to deal about the potential embarrassment. But that embarrassment builds character for you to come back. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
And that's the thing. So that's why, like, I know King does Fight Night Fridays and stuff like that. We try to encourage it, because it's like, that's what makes you a better person, to be able to come back from adversity and not worry about, people trying to mock you and make fun of you. It's the fact that you competed.
I love that you say that, because with this same review, like, I would say I was outwardly excited about it, and I was like, yeah, you know what, like, there's some L taking to be had for me, but I don't know. I feel like that's such a rare, I've been like putting down like notes for my script, and I'm like going to mention, I was like, it's such a rare commodity nowadays. Like, just people willingly taking the L. Like, hey, look, go leave L in the comments, or you can make fun of me, but like, I'm here to own it. And I feel like that ownership of, I don't even say it's a mistake, just like, hey, I was definitely like hyped for the wrong thing here. Like, I didn't see through it. Even if I felt I was lied to, it was one of those things where I feel that is a I never really thought of it until recently, but I'm glad to hear it from you, because it's like, yeah, dude, like with social media and stuff, I mean, there are people who are putting themselves out there in very positive ways. My go-to example always is, I remember I was like on Instagram, I was like sifting through reels, and I got to one of like a heavier gentleman who was like on the treadmill walking, and he was like on a weight loss journey. He's like, I'm down 20 pounds. Like, okay, cool. I click the comments, and all the comments are like, hey, great job, fat ass. And I'm like, yo, like, what, like, this guy is like doing it, and you guys just, it's comedic to you to put it down. Like, that's the thing, is put downs used to at least be like, you said something dumb or you did something dumb, and that's how Twitter and social media worked. I'm like, okay, at least there was a level of earning it. But now we're getting, I think, a new generation that is so used to just talking like this. And I'm not even saying it's like a fighter. I was never a fighter growing up, but like talking like this on the keyboard, that they just like anything is worthy of mocking, even if you are doing good by yourself or other people and you're not harming nobody. Like, that is still problematic to some people, and it is deeply concerning in my opinion, because I'm just like, look, it's one thing if someone's being a dumbass, at least again, there's a level of like, they stepped into it, maybe. And again, the thing is now the reaction to when people step in shit is to like defend that stance, because if you concede, these people mob you. And so I know it's getting much deeper than the original topic, but yeah, dude, just what you said there lit a fire in me, because it's so damn true, and it bothers me, because it's like, I don't think maybe I just lack humility, but I think like taking an L isn't a bad thing at all. Like, you mentioned it builds that character. Like, okay, I have always told people, they're like, how do you do what you did on YouTube? Like, people look at me at times when like I'll meet like other creators at events, and they're like, yeah, man, like, you're so good, or like, you've grown so fast. Like, how do you do that? I'm like, dude, I fucked up a lot. Like, that's the thing. Like, it wasn't like I had, like, you come to me like I had this perfect run. It's like, dude, I almost got canceled. Like, I started working for LSM at one point in the middle of my growth. Like, so I did a number of things that could have just stopped me dead in my tracks. Like, and that's the thing is, by the way, LSM, I'm not framing as a mistake, but I'm saying that like it was a risk. but it was a risk I believed in. But yeah, I just think a lot of people are so afraid of failure. And it's like, that's the worst thing you can do for yourself, is just fearing that failure, like just going out. I just like the idea of like, what always pushes me on is like going after it and just knowing what the reality is on the other side. Even if I fail, it's like, you just know now. And there's so much you can take from that.
So well said. And last thing I'll say before I pass it to Egg is just that, like even from a content creation standpoint, I remember when we talked about the Redfall situation, I learned so much. That was what I had to go through, and I wasn't used to being ridiculed on that level. And I was just, okay, what do I get from this? What do I learn? And it kind of, I took from that experience, and then that kind of helped shape the Obsidian Avowed experience, which ended up being a positive because of things I've learned in the way I got to question and things I said to myself, okay, never put yourself in this position again, or how could I have framed it and did it better, and kind of thing, where I'm honest with myself, and I'm also serving my audience in a positive way. And again, if it wasn't for that other situation, that wouldn't have helped, that quote unquote failure wouldn't have helped birth this success kind of thing. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, good shit.
Let's hear from you, man. Personal reflection.
I mean, this is really interesting. I mean, first of all, Matty, like, I think the introspection and the reflection is healthy. It's weird. I took this topic in a different direction, but I think it kind of indirectly leads back to what you guys are saying too. I mean, first of all, Cog, your story is like a classic case of the prized pupil surpassing the mentor, which I think is hilarious. And I could see that in fighting game culture. I wasn't a big Tekken guy, but certainly with Street Fighter and some of the Neo Geo stuff, like that was, and our eras, especially in the 90s, like that was like a whole different level of, pre-social media, pre even the internet in a lot of cases. So it was like local legends and stories and myths and, printing out cheat sheets to bring to the arcade. But what you say really strikes me, because it's kind of a world I don't know, that what you guys are talking about, that embarrassment or that taking an L on a grand scale, which, due to social media, due to the internet, due to competitive online gaming and all that kind of stuff, like that's got to definitely add a degree of complexity. So it adds a degree of obstacle to overcome as well. And, kind of, I guess, necessitates a little more grit and that sort of thing. So that's interesting. That's kind of a learning point for me. But what I was thinking of, two things, actually. When there's like a din around something popular in media, this could certainly apply for me to movies and video games, but very often with TV series, when there's a lot of conversation and praise around a thing, I get genuinely, and I haven't seen it yet, I get genuinely curious. I have a cynical side, but I'm also very open-minded. So I'm always very curious to see what all the fuss is about. And it's almost always, and maybe I'm lucky, but for me, it's almost always been rewarded in that I jump into that thing. I remember starting Mad Men late. Game of Thrones, I think I started after it ended.
Wow.
And hearing like, oh my God, these are amazing things. And then jumping in for myself and seeing what, all the clamor's about, and, the heaping helpings of praise, and going in and being like, oh, okay, like this is legit. I see why everybody loves this thing. And thing after thing. And sometimes this has applied to video games, especially for me when I missed a game and a sequel is coming out. I remember this with Alan Wake. Alan Wake 2 was coming out. There's a crazy conversation around it. I had missed the first one. Everybody's saying how wonderful it is. Jumped in, immediately found out like, oh, this game is amazing. I understand why everybody's talking around the water cooler about this thing. But I guess it was last year, this very same thing happened to me with the HBO series Succession. Have you guys seen it?
I've heard amazing things.
Heard of it. Yeah.
It was right up there with all the talk of, gold. This is the next thing in golden age television, right up there with Sopranos and Game of Thrones and The Wire and everything else that everybody, Breaking Bad and Saul and everything everybody loves. It's right on the same level. So of course, like I usually do, I jumped in, and it wasn't that it was bad. In fact, I was blown away by the acting, but it didn't, as I was watching it, and I eventually got through the whole series, front to back, it wasn't hitting the levels of, the podcasters were going on and on about, and everybody was fawning over it. It wasn't hitting those heights for me. And you think it's you. It's like, and it was the first time I had that miss where I wasn't on the same wavelength with what the general populace was saying. And I kind of realized like, that's the one thing that made me realize like, it's not always you. There's some kind of alignment that needs to happen. Well, it's a wavelength thing. Sometimes it's a headspace thing. Sometimes it's like vacillating taste, whether your taste has shifted or it's just shifted for that week. It's like turning on a game and you just want action, but you put in this game with deep exploration and you're just not there. You're just not with it that week or that night. And you just need some straight up action. So you end up, going through the motions for 2 hours. Then you just pop in a fighting game because you just want to scratch that specific itch. It's like you really want like a deep drama, but you're watching a comedy. It's not, you know what I mean? So there's always that thing of just kind of lining up and being on a wavelength with something. Because I'm starting to rewatch Succession now, and I'm enjoying it a lot more. And it's that soul searching and introspection that Matty's talking about. Is like, is this me? Am I artificially somehow liking it more because I think I'm supposed to? And the answer is no, I'm really enjoying it. I guess whatever I was watching back in 2023, whenever that was, probably last year around this time, I just wasn't, you know what I mean? There was just something there where it wasn't working for me, So I think it was that. And then sometimes you genuinely just don't. I had this experience with Knockback with RoboCop, the first RoboCop movie. It's one of those pop culture phenomenons that everybody just loves, which I could relate to on Star Wars and Aliens and a lot of other things. Never liked RoboCop. It just wasn't for me. Even as a kid, I didn't like it. And I wanted to do that episode just because I thought it would be a different conversation for Colin and I, where we're usually, drooling over something and gushing over things. But I knew that conversation would be different, at least for me, because I didn't like it. And I got a lot of backlash from me. I'm not really a controversial person on the podcast. I don't upset a lot of people. But that one, for me at least, there was a huge backlash, like you're out of your mind type of thing. And people being really upset. And you know what? I had to just double down and be like, you know what? Respectfully, it's just not for me. And it was a way of saying like, realizing like you're not always going to agree on everything all the time. And you just got to come authentically with what you like and what you don't like. What was cool about RoboCop is when it came out and I was a kid, 9 years old, whatever I was when it came out, I didn't like it then. And I still don't like it. So over the test of time, it was like, this movie is just out and out not for me, but it upset a lot of people. And that was the first experience I had with that. So it was like a Succession experience, but with a film that, I watched again and I didn't have that experience of like, oh, I love this now. No, it's just, this just doesn't work for Dagan.
Dude.
So that was the two things where it was like really realizing sometimes, you know what I mean? You're eating something sweet, but you need something salty. It was like, you got to kind of placate I don't know if it's a mood thing. I don't know if it's just the complexity of being a human being, but I think sometimes you just don't, with the RoboCop thing aside, or things you really kind of don't like, or you realize you love or you hate or whatever, sometimes those things could change just over the course of time. You know what I mean? You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of like you hear like a judge determining a case. And a lot of it, this is a human being. So the decision could come down to that person's mood, what happened to him that morning. You know what I mean? Somebody cut him off in traffic, that type of thing. So that was an interesting, that's really what Matty's topic when he emailed, that's what it kind of kicked up for me. It was like this thing of, trying to, especially with us, because we're involved in the media and a lot of the things we talk about on these podcasts and these shows, people listen, hundreds of people, sometimes thousands of people, whatever, I think but I think that introspection and the open-mindedness is important, I think, but just the introspection and just giving yourself the permission to change your mind, as much as having conviction, I think all those things are important, The L thing is interesting for me though, because that's something as I feel like I dodged just due to my age and my proclivities with playing games too. I'm not really an online gamer. I'm very, not even couch co-op anymore. Like you were saying, Cog, which got you in trouble with your friends when you were younger, that type of thing. But I wonder if that would be good for me too. Like I'll tell you, my fighting game thing with Street Fighter 6, I was so bad at Street Fighter 5 with online play. I just felt like 9 times out of 10, I was losing to whoever, like very mediocre skill level people were kicking my ass, that I'd never even delved into Street Fighter 6 online competition because I was just really kind of, you know what I mean? My confidence was completely crushed in Street Fighter 5, So am I protecting myself from humiliation, or am I not testing myself enough? I don't know.
Put yourself out there, though. I mean, at least you're in there. You know what I'm saying? Some people won't even, jump in there. And then you wear the era of the Twitch and the YouTube. And again, hey, look who I fought. Yeah. I just destroyed Dagan. You know what I'm saying? Tweets out. Quick, they be quick, man.
A share button on PlayStation, on Xbox, just
bro,
the snap.
It's easy. It happened to me with shout out to my man Ty Guy, Travis Maggi, and my boy DJ Oros, who's a good friend of me now. We met. He actually he pulled up on the Butler event at LSM.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's awesome. I love it. Like I remember, like there's in Destiny, their competitive PvP is called Trials of Osiris, 3-man. It's a very competitive thing, and I remember getting matched up. And I didn't know who he was. And then during the match, they like, yo, Cog, it's me. Da, 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 da. We're big fans, whatever. So I'm like, all right, cool. That was friendly vibe, everything. So I remember, I ain't going to say who the person was. They know who they are. But at the end of it, so my team lost. And then at the end of it, I get a tweet with the video.
No.
Smoked Cognito. I'm like, hey, yo. Like, meanwhile, during the match, you saying nothing but sweet nothings and how great I am. Yeah. And so it's an honor to fight you. And I'm like, oh, it was this? This is how we internalize it? Yeah. Oh, so I had to let them know. I was like, okay, I see what it is. In this time, now I know when I see you again, what I'm going to have to do. If I get, which I got my get back. But it is interesting that kind of stuff, the L taking and stuff like that, it does permeate the culture, and it does. I hate to say, like it's an embarrassment promotion culture.
Yeah,
and people want to take you down a peg. People want to, ridicule you, or when you're wrong, or you had a flop, or whatever it is. And what it is, you got to learn from it. You have to learn from it. And I understand from Matty's generation specifically because he's putting himself out there, very strong opinions, and a lot of times some things are not going to resonate, and you see. How that reaction can be sometimes. So I understand. I definitely can empathize with what you're going through. As a person who you kind of grew up in this generation, this is your start of you being this young YouTuber and then putting yourself out there from the very beginning. So I can only imagine how it must be for you.
I mean, yeah, you're used to it, right? And there's a level of navigation that comes with that you're just aware. Like here, I'll give an example because Dagan, what you said about RoboCop resonated with me a ton. Because when we started Retro Rewind, our whole channel is built around the idea of like Matty is not seeing shit when it comes to movies.
That's right.
And so I'm definitely going to have these odd takes because there are things that are in games that I've seen for years that were born from movies. Like, it was really cool to kind of discover the source of retro future is Alien, and like that's what but for me that was first exposure with that was Fallout, and like it didn't hurt Alien, it made me love Alien more. And so like my tastes work in reverse of what people expect, I think, with movies. And so there was Inglourious Bastards was one I saw that I was like this is good, but I don't love it. People lost their fucking minds, and like it was like an unacceptable take. And it was one of those moments where you kind of learn like, okay, this is where people expect you to just be in love with it, and there's like a right opinion here, so to say, which I've never agreed with the idea that exists. Crazy. But then to my point of learning to navigate it, there was a time where I would like share stuff on Twitter just to share my thoughts, and I'd like to hear from my audience. I always do. Like I'm still that way. I just do it differently now. Like I'll go to Discord, or I'll selectively go into the comments, that sort of thing. But there was a time I would like tweet out a great example, and I'll say this one because I know the LSM Reddit caught me on this, is I actually enjoyed the new Joker movie. And that is like apparently a take of all takes, which
I never heard anybody. That's a first for me.
Yeah. And I'm not going to tell you, like, I came out of the theater. I didn't know how bad people thought it was, but I was like, that was really different. Like I've seen all these different takes on the Joker, and I understand how people felt it was a middle finger to people who liked the first movie. I kind of thought that's what made it very interesting. I was like, I've never really experienced this with a comic book movie before, where they're like, fuck you guys, like check this shit out. I'm like, this is kind of fun, but I get why people didn't like it. And so I like put out there, I was like, oh, I kind of love this movie in a weird way. And I immediately realized that, and today there was a time when I did that people be like, oh, the natural thing was to discuss. But I recognized in that moment, I'm like, this is going to be received as a challenge. This is a hot take. And even though I'm trying to innocently like, I kind of like that. People are going to be like, dumb take. You're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. My first 5 replies for that, I was like, right. Like, I've got to learn here. Like, there's a better way to engage in this conversation.
That's so great.
And I'm going to go have a podcast about it and talk there for an hour about the movie with Locke, who also didn't hate it. And Locke's way more well-versed in movies than I. And I was like, let's just do that instead. I deleted the tweet. LSM Reddit still got it. And like a lot of people were talking about like, just my takes are always awful. My takes are like the most unpredictable pieces of shit. Like just a lot of people, the person who posted was like innocent, but like the people who saw it as an opportunity to go after me did. And it was like, there's times where you do have to stand your ground and be like, I don't think it's an L take, man. Like, it's not like I'm out here fucking beating the war drum on how incredible it is. I'm just like, oh, I didn't hate it. And there is that us versus them mentality that, by the way, that has nothing to do with the movie now. Moving on from that. There is this us versus them mentality I think has infected like online discourse where you're always like, you're with us or you're against us.
Yes.
And at times I've been called like a fence rider with like certain topics because I think I try to always tackle things with nuance where it's like, politically, even like growing up, I was like, I always remember saying, and especially before it was as extreme as it is now, I was like, why do you have to pick a side? I was like, don't both sides have great ideas? And I feel like that shaped a lot of my way of thinking because like my family would debate politics at the dinner table, specifically my dad's side of the family, constantly. And so it was just like, you know, this like differing of opinions because they're just on like opposite sides. I'm like, can't you come together? And I feel like, again, that's guided a lot of my thinking and that there is this level of middle ground that does exist where we can agree on both ends. But when it comes to, there is a level of, I don't know if it was Cog or Dag who said this, but like knocking someone down a peg that is kind of built in our society. I think that came with social media because it first started with like, oh, celebrities who are doing like fucked up things,
right?
Think they're immune and now they can't get away with it. It's like, we can take that power away from them. It's like, okay, that is kind of interesting because like it keeps people humble. Don't get too far away from yourself. Don't get your head too high above water because people pull you back down. But now it's happening to the common man. And that's the difference. The common man who's got like 100 followers on Twitter will get canceled. It's for like just the most insane shit. And that's the difference nowadays, right? That's where I think it's gotten carried away. Like I mentioned with that reel, like someone's just bettering themselves. That's not a cancel effort, but that's like, oh, we're just going to like fly by, ruin this dude's day, maybe harden his resolve a little bit, create a villain origin story and just carry on. And it's continuously baffling to me. But yeah, Dag, what you said about RoboCop was insanely relatable because there was a time hot takes were really interesting, I feel, to people. Like you'd hear, oh, you don't think this thing like everyone else. Okay, let's get into that. And I'm not going to act like there was this golden age of the internet where hot takes were just warmly received all the time. But I think there was a level of like desired discussion. But it's like either fall in line or get the fuck out of our way is kind of the energy we get. Like when I came out with my positive preview for Dragon Age Veilguard, it was like the amount of gaslighting I faced as a creator was never nothing like I've ever experienced. Like a lot of, you got paid for this. You work for them. I was just like, oh, you were all handed talking points. That's why you're saying the same thing IGN said. I'm just like, I was like, dude, I don't know anyone from IGN outside of Ty Guy Travis. I haven't fucking talked to him since Redfall came out. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I just, that's kind of where I think things are falling apart a little bit. I know it's a little bit away from personal reflections, but those things, in a sense, do make you reflect because it's like, you want to be firm in your opinion. And that's what I do now. It's like when I deliver an opinion, it's like, okay, I need to be conscious that this is something that's going to follow me. And let's say I got pushback on even the smallest of things. How deep do my heels get dug into the sand before I have to budge or feel like I should budge? And I think stubbornness is like is a thing that can kill you online. If you are not able to mend and take that L and understand where you could do things better, even this slightly, it could be in the end of everything you built. It's a really tough balancing act for sure.
Yeah, no, well said. Well said.
Matty, I don't, and Cog, this goes for you too. There's one thing that eludes me in all this. I mean, first of all, I think, and I'm judging from a 50-year-old's perspective, so I may be missing on this a little bit, but I think the internet and social media has gotten to this point where I think, especially for the younger people, I don't even know if they, because they were born in this, it's the only world they really they know, right? People in their late teens, let's say right now. I don't even know if they're aware of the level of damage or hurt they could cause just with, what they think is an off the cuff comment. And I'm not saying that kind of behavior is exclusive to young people, because there's people my age doing it too. But I do think that's happening. What really shocks me though is guys like you, and I'm looking at Matty, I'm looking at Cog when I say this. You guys have a podium, you have an audience, you have a forum, right? Been doing not only that, but you've been doing it for a while. You've been doing it a long time. You have a fan base. You're talking about contemporary, oftentimes video games that you're engaged with, and people are about to also be, many thousands of people are also about to be, or already are, fully engaged with. So you're talking about them you're experiencing them for the first time with your audience, right? Mm-hmm. You're all in it when it's new, it's contemporary, it's fresh. What I get surprised about is, especially people, regulars or regular listeners to your podcast, fans, that they wouldn't have a sense of your taste enough to know what your opinion is going to be, or at least have a best guess at what your opinion is going to be going in about any certain thing, because they've been listening to you, watching you for a matter of time. So they already know your taste. They know your proclivities, what you're going to like, what you're not going to like. Mm-hmm. They should have a pretty strong, I would imagine they would have a pretty strong sense of that. So it surprises me when people act surprised over a take, whether you like something or don't like something and they disagree. That's the weird thing for me, because I've never really been in the position that you guys are in, talking about new things when they're still new, right? We did Knockback. We do Constellation, which is conversations on anything, right? That's what really shocks me about it, is that, and also I give you guys a lot of credit for sticking to your guns and bringing authentic takes and not being disingenuous, especially because you're making money off it. You know what I mean? So to double down on what you like and what you don't like and be honest about it rather than placate. I give you guys a lot of credit for that. And any content producers, any YouTubers or podcasters that do that and don't try to, be, it's one thing to be diplomatic. It's one thing to be accessible, friendly, welcoming, all that kind of thing. But I think part of the power of what you guys do and why you guys have cultivated a fan base, and pretty large fan bases, is because they want what Matty really thinks. They want what Lord Cog really thinks. And that's what surprises me, is that, people would be surprised. Like, shouldn't they know, or shouldn't they at least 80% of the way know how you're going to feel about said thing, just judging, just from getting to know you over the years? What do you think of that?
You'd think. I mean, part of it's like reach. You get to see on YouTube, for example, like how many people are not subscribed watching my stuff versus subscribed. The sad reality, or maybe good reality, depending on how you look at it, is that most of your viewers are not subscribed to you. And so
that's interesting.
So yeah, like for me, it's usually a 55-45 split, 55% not subscribed. So more than half the people clicking on it are like, maybe they just see me and they're recommended and they just never bothered to subscribe. But a lot of them probably are just like, oh, this is interesting, let's check this out. And because of that, you get a lot of people who step in and just don't know your taste or anything. And I think it's one of the things I don't like about the videos I have to make, is sometimes I feel like a broken record in reestablishing talking points I've said. It keeps me very consistent because I'm like an encyclopedia with the shit I say at times. But the reason I repeat it so often is because it's so used to just having to re-explain myself. And the mistake I made when I was first growing was assuming that viewer A saw the last two videos and knew where I was building off from. So therefore, I didn't have to explain all of that. But That's why some of my videos kind of open up with setup of like, here's what's happening with Ubisoft. Their stock prices are this low. This is happening and that's happening. And so now we get into the new stuff because you kind of have to catch everyone up under the assumption that most people have no idea what you're talking about. And because of that, you'll get people who, particularly in review content, is where it's shown the most. What was it? I reviewed Atomic Heart. And people were like, this is the guy who likes Fallout 76. And this was, by the way, before 76 had a resurgence. I'm like, what? The other example, if we were to give it a recent one, was when Starfield's DLC came out. A lot of, I don't know what fandom, I'm guessing it was part of the Xbox faithful, is what it seemed based on certain accounts. But a lot of people were like, well, he hates Xbox and in turn he hates Bethesda. And I was like, dude, do you know, like, I've been doing Bethesda videos probably longer than you've been alive. Based on the way you tweet at me, I'm going to assume you're a teenager. Like, I've been doing Bethesda videos since 2011. If there's anyone who loves what they do, it's me, and cares about what they do, it's me. But what happens is we're in this kind of culture now where, because the internet has so many, try to word this as elegantly as I can. The internet has so many pockets of people, right? And they all create their own realities, their own narratives, their own views and experiences, that they can just apply that to any one given thing. And as long as enough people believe in the very idea of that, not even if it's real or not, that's all they need, is kind of like a nudge to kind of push it into the fabric of truth. So the idea of like, well, Matty, there's enough reasons we think for him to hate Bethesda because there's enough reasons for him to hate Xbox. So enough people buy into that, and you knock one domino thing over, and now thousands of people think I have an agenda to hate Bethesda, which is baffling to me. But that's the kind of thing that you deal with, right? And you kind of expect, and that's where you start to shut the blinds a little bit, man. Like, I've never been that kind of guy, but eventually you just, dude, there are so many times, like, people have sent me stuff. Someone posted me about Reddit. I remember the First Descendant community came after me one time for their player count that's like falling through a fucking floor right now. And I remember there was like a post about me though, and they were like trying to troll me and just like bait me into it. And I was just like, man, I could clap you guys back so fucking hard, but I'm not going to, because it's not like I'm just going to get into a vortex of fighting and bickering and bullshit. And that's where it's the best thing I've learned in my whole life, because I grew up around angry people and I'm not an angry individual. The only time I get pissed is when someone lies to me, but is just pick your battles, dude.
Yeah.
I think a lot of creators make and just online people in general, but you make the wrong choices constantly of just picking every fight as a worthwhile one. And I think unless someone laid at my feet like a really serious label or something like that, that I was like, I need to defend this. Like, if you think like, oh, the First Descendant community has a problem with me and my take on their player count, fuck, go ahead, dude. Go ahead. Like, that's cool. Like, it's just not a battle worth having, right? Same thing with like, oh, you hate Bethesda. It's like, okay, go ahead. Like at a certain point you got to grab the reins, right? But otherwise it's just, I don't mean to make this all about me and my experiences, by the way. I apologize, but just,
no, you good.
It's just one of those things where I feel like some people might appreciate the insight of how creators think. Cause like, Colin's a great example. Colin just said like, dude, it's just way too parasocial. I'm unplugging. And I've started to have that moment. I had my kind of one of my defining moments. Last thing I'll throw out there and just kick it to one of you guys is when I posted my Shattered Space review. I was getting a lot of stupid messages, but one of them in particular was like, you used to be so full of life. And I'm like, motherfucker, you don't know me from a hole in the wall outside of my gaming takes. I'm the happiest I've been in fucking years. You do not know my mental disposition because I didn't like DLC for a video game. That's the stuff that will get under my skin a little bit, because it's like
that's
that assumption of knowing me. It's like, know my gaming takes, and I'm very personable, so I'm not afraid to show myself. I have nothing to hide. So you do know me to an extent, but you do not know my mental disposition, because the things that affect me on a daily basis are none of your business, none of your concern, because I'm not like that. I talk about games for a living, but that's the sort of stuff you kind of had to field, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
100%.
My rambling is done. I apologize, gents.
Nah, you good. This is real. No, I mean, I get it. Learning to pick your battles. Remember, I always came up with that thing. I call it the 10 tweet rule. I feel that a lot of people are very disingenuous. So I look at their last 10 interactions before I even think about responding. And
that's great. That's a great policy.
I was doing that I was looking for new artists for my Retro Rebound channel. And I've been, God, that rule. There's some people I saw, I was like, you almost had it.
Yep, you almost had it. But
you almost had a gig.
This is what you're about. This is
Very
what you
smart.
do. So what it is a lot of it is also baiting, to try to get a response out of you.
Sure.
Because a lot of people then, I will just say, how will word this? Some uncreative people like to farm engagement by attaching your name to a situation, and then they can continue to milk this thing to build their up. So I've learned all the tricks, and for me, it's just like, I don't need that type of energy on my spirit. It's going to really affect me, put me in a negative mood. I choose not to live my life like that. Now, generally, if it's someone I care about, and then they said something like that, okay, then I feel like I need an obligation to respond, only because of the fact that I do like you. You know what I mean? And maybe you're coming at it from a different perspective, and I just want to give a little bit more clarity. But for the most part, yeah, man, I just can't, because I've learned it's just, the early things that Matty said are very true. It's a very us versus them, kind of mentality online a lot of times. And then a lot of times people they are sincerely hurt that, you disagree. And I'm from the era of, we could have constructive conversation.
Yeah, that's so odd to me.
Help me. When someone disagrees with me, I always say to myself, okay, we don't agree here, but I want to know how they got to that conclusion. Let me at least try to and then sometimes that bridges the gap. Sometimes that's like, okay, I get it now. I see why he didn't like that. Mm-hmm. But this becomes so contentious. How dare you betrayed us? You know what I'm saying? By you not liking said thing. And I'm just like, I've learned to realize that, okay, I'm going to stand my ground with things that I, doesn't resonate with me or I disagree with, but it's not a personal attack on you. You know what I'm saying? It's just a difference in, an opinion and stuff like that. I think that's what this generation, unfortunately, like I said, it's very gang culture, like, in my opinion. It's very, we got to be all in or not. And there's no nuance. There's no, diversity of thought. You know what I'm saying? And that's my thing. And that's one of the reasons why I came to LSM, because I was like, at the end of the day, this is one of the conversations I told Colin when we talked with him about me coming over. And I was like, I don't agree with everything you say. Sure. But at the end of the day, like, I love the fact that we're able to have the conversation and we can talk about these difficult things. That's what makes it dope. Like, so I love that. Yeah. So that's why I love it. Everybody has been so welcoming to me. And, like Matty said earlier, I remember when some people had issue. I was shocked. I was like, oh, you're going to do that? And I'm like, to talk about video games with people, is this an issue? So you're not going to be my friend anymore because I've decided to talk to these people that to talk video games. Okay, then you show me where you are at and what our friendship really is. So I cut you off then, kind of. To be honest, I didn't really have a lot of that. I was very lucky in that respect that so many people said, no, Cog, that's dope. We love what you're doing and stuff like that. So yeah, it's an interesting time, Dagan, man. It just learning this whole, culture and content creation and then having those deep reflective moments on how to process this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well said. I mean, you guys are fighting the good fight. I mean, really what surprises me for you two guys specifically is the level of likability and the level of warmth. And people, especially
let's not get carried away here with likability for me. Let's not get carried away.
Well, especially with you two, right? Like, especially people that know you even, from a distance, that maybe don't tune into every show, but every 3 shows. They know you well enough to know your personality. So to reply with that level of aggression is something that's so foreign to me. You know what I mean?
I get it, Dagan. I'm going to tell you where I think it birthed from.
Yeah.
It's because our culture, and this is no disrespect to young culture, is that we come from an era where, like, you meet people, you hang out, and that's your friend.
Right.
In my opinion, as an older gamer, I feel that this generation is like, you really don't know. You watch me, but because you watch me or you watch Matty, you feel like you know me. So they feel like we are friends, but we haven't had that physical interaction yet. So now if Matty or Cog says something that, oh my God, my friend is betrayed me. It's a deep cut because in their mind, they have already formed this deep relationship with you, despite not having the physical and everything else that constitutes a normal friendship.
That's so interesting.
You see what I'm saying? And
yeah,
I think that's why the cuts are so deep and they're so aggressive when you disagree, because it's like, in my mind, I thought I know you, man.
Right. We've been talking for months.
We've been talking. You, my God, I turn you on. You get me through my day. I talk to you 3-4 hours. How dare you not like that DLC? We were supposed to be together in on this. That's where the hurt comes from.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I think you're on to something with that.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Matty, I want to go to you last, but I just want to, this may be unrelated, but I'm genuinely curious, and you guys may have the answer to this. And I'm fascinated. The subscribe button, right? On social media, but let's say in particular on YouTube. My sense of the subscribe button is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, these are people, potential fans, actual fans, followers, listeners, whatever. That's their way of holding over you the fact of like, I'm not the thing of like holding out until you really earn it. This is what you really have to earn from me. And this, when you really win me over, that's when I'm going to hit that button, when I really commit to. And that's the thing they hold over the content creator's head, not the watches, not the, maybe even they'll click the little heart. But that subscribe button seems like the biggest currency to me as far as like, or else why would people that regularly listen or watch, why would they just not hit that button?
I know why.
Tell me about that. I'm genuinely curious about it. It's totally outside my
I feel like I'm very cagey with my subscribe button. Like I'm definitely.
You are?
Yeah. Like I'm definitely what you just described. To me, it's a level of usefulness. And that's why I don't let YouTube get to my head, because I'm like, I'm only as good as I am useful. So if I'm not useful, that's it for me. Like, yeah. So when it comes to when I'm looking for like, let's say particularly gaming content, it's like, I'm not going to subscribe to like, I watched one guide for this one video game that I couldn't get through or I wanted a trophy on. It's like, okay, cool. Thank you for your service. And I'm going to go about my day, right? Like you got my view. Probably honestly more valuable to you than my subscription.
Yeah.
But when it comes to when I do subscribe, it's like, how many times do I just like cross your path? And that third time, fourth time, I'm like, okay, coming around here a lot. I'm gonna want to see what's going on here. Maybe obviously personality plays a factor. It's like almost an interview, a one-sided interview process, right? Like, okay, welcome to the fold. You can join my subscription box. Some people I know just subscribe to everybody. But for me, like I don't really I'm trying to think if I do for Mr. Matty. It's kind of blurring in my head right now. I know in Retro Rebound, I'll tell people like, hey, if you're interested in nostalgic retrospective content, please subscribe, because there's like a theme to that channel. So if you subscribe for like that one style of content, you're going to get a lot of that. Like we do 2 videos a week. You're going to get a lot of that. Mr. Matty, it's like, I don't know what I'm uploading. I have to do a video today. I don't know what the fuck I'm uploading. Like I kind of figure it out as I go along. So I kind of just let the belly of the beast do its thing almost. But Cog seemed to have a better answer prepped. I don't know. I don't value subscriptions as much as others. I've seen people who have half my subscription base get better views than me and probably in turn make way more money than me because their videos just come around and do massive numbers and their thumbnails are better or whatever it may be. Like everyone's got their own style, and it's really about reach and impressions and like, can you intrigue people? Because like content just makes the rounds naturally. I think people value subscriptions less because for me, like people will just look my name up when something's happening with Bethesda. Like, oh, there's a new Fallout game. I'm just going to look up Matty. Like you just get known for a type of thing. And that's why I do that with other creators. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. I can't right now, but it's like, this Switch game's interesting me. I'm going to go check out Switch Up because they have like really good Nintendo Switch focused reviews. It's like, okay, I'm going to go search them. I'm already subscribed to them, so it's not a perfect example, but like I would go and look them up anyway. So yeah, like that's how I look at it. Is like it's about value for me at least.
Yeah, no, well said. I mean, I guess to Dagan's question, for me, yeah, I do operate like Matty personally when it's me watching other content. And I'm like, okay, this was cool. I vibe with the person. I like the personality, but I don't necessarily give the sub just immediately. I want to see if there's other, content that you have. And then sometimes content is just so amazing. I'm like, you know what? I really appreciate the effort that was done here. And I really vibe and I really connect with the person. And now it's about 2 or 3 videos. Hey, you've earned this, man. I love what you're doing. So that's kind of my thing in terms of me looking at other content. Now, as far as ourselves, Matty nailed it on the head as far as, us and ILP, because my biggest frustration, I remember when I started, was like the sub count was everything. And I was just so frustrated. I'm like, man, I get it. We're a long form podcast. We're not making videos. I understand how the algorithm works, but it's like, man, like the views are higher, but the some kind of people ain't subscribing. Like, what's going on? Like, it was really frustrating to me, and it affected self-worth. Like, well, maybe we're not good enough, or what do we need to do? And then things started to change. I would say over the last 3 to 4 years, where we were getting opportunities, and I was shocked because I was just like, okay, well, we don't have the subscriber count, we don't have these hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but then people like Cog, and I shout out to Jimmy and a couple other people that told me, look, you're devaluing your live viewership. There's like, what you guys are doing is very unique in this space, and you have to. And then we started to leverage that, and then more opportunities out. We're like, oh, okay, now we see what the value is. And I'm like, okay, because you have real life people in there interacting, and your community is strong, and there's a value to that. So I was like, okay, I get it. Now to the other question which you had in reference to, how do we look at the people who don't subscribe and that kind of stuff. I do have a theory on that as well.
I'd love to hear that.
My theory with that is that, look, obviously not everyone loves you, right? So there are some people, they are coming in there with the intent to see what you had to say on said subject, and then use this as ammunition or fuel to drive what they are about to say in counter to you. So that's what I noticed. There's a lot of, because I'm like, I guess I'm from the era, like, if I don't like somebody, I'm not watching them. Like, but this era, they hate you, but they're still watching. Like, it's a very interesting thing to me.
It really is.
Yeah. Like, I couldn't consistently watch someone that I completely disagree with. Maybe once in a while you say, okay, I wonder what they feel about that. But there are people who live on channels.
That's nuts to me.
Yeah. Just to, okay,
incredible.
I'm ready, and unfortunately, I guess to my demise, or be disagree with, is that the algorithm sometimes rewards that. Sometimes rewards that kind of behavior where it's like, hey, my response to Dagan, my response to Mr. Matty plays blah blah blah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's a lot to it. I could see it being really vexing and confusing, though.
Yeah.
And it's still the Wild West. Let's face it. It's still very new compared to most other media. So
you can't control it, and I think that's part of it. Is just like, I'm not a control freak, but I can imagine control freaks who have like do what I do, or Cog does, or Dig does. Like, that is probably so tough because you cannot control what's going to happen. Like, you can just sometimes get a bad roll. Like, it is kind of luck based. Like, and by that I don't mean views. I mean like the audience that finds your video. Like, sometimes you just find the wrong group of people, and like you just look. Like, I think experience helps in a lot of that. Like, you just identify like, yeah, I don't think I did anything wrong here. Like, I just kind of got like one person shouted this out, and then it just fed it to that whole group of people, and this video got gobbled up and spit out, and this is the remains of it. It's a corpse of a video now. It's quite frustrating because you put all that time into it. But yeah, dude, like, it is like an uncontrollable beast. The Wild West is the perfect term for it. It was very Wild West when it first came around, and just like how crazy shit was. But like now it's like just a whole new version of it, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in everything you guys just said. I love it. I learned a lot on that topic. One of the more educational Constellation topics for me.
Yeah, Matty, I always like talking about YouTube on an informational side, because I feel like a lot of people think it's just like post video done, and I think there's just so much. It's almost like a science. I tell people,
oh yeah,
there's science to it.
I learned.
You all can hate my thumbnails, but
them joints be working. No, well said.
Yeah, well done. There's the thumbnail thing that's a whole nother conversation. Maybe I'm going to write that down as a topic. I have a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I Jimmy is a great touch phone. I go to him with the title and thumbnail ideas all the time, and I always go back to him when he gets it right. I mean, whether he always gets it right, but like I always go back to him. I'm just like, you did it again, dude. Like,
he's just got to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like the third time I've heard that about him in 3 weeks. So I gotta.
He just opens up the way you think about it. Like, yes. he just really opens up how you, because like you don't realize how much of the lifting your thumbnail really does. Like, your title almost doesn't matter. The first thing you see is the big image. There used to be a time your title mattered more, but like the thumbnail is everything.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating shit. Yeah. Very cool topic, Matty.
I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, that was fun. And we're going to say, we're not going to say what it is, but we're going to save your next one for you for the next time you're on the show.
Yes.
If you so choose to do it.
Of course.
All right. Cog, I'm going to put you up next. Dr. Cog, I should say. I'm going to hand this one over to you, my friend, for the middle topic.
Yeah, man. I was thinking about this. So, obviously always all my health is wealth kick. And, I want to spread some awareness, some love or hate, depending on how you take it. With doctors, obviously, we encounter them, we deal with them all the time. And it was just something I thought of. And I was just like, you know what? In my experience and my health journey and stuff like that, there were obviously some really amazing people that I crossed paths with that truly transformed the way I think or just the way I look at my body and stuff like that. And obviously I've had some experience with the greatest, but I want to send some love first. So shout out to my man, Dr. Perlman. Dr. Perlman, you're gonna get some love today. He's my allergist and also he works in immunology. And it's interesting because I know I presented a lot of challenges for this man. I know this man, I was probably getting on his nerves with my line of questioning, my Google doctor, my WebMD experience
Mayo
coming in.
Clinic.
Trying to tell him what to do. So basically, the long and short of it was a period of my life where, I was doing my protein shake thing. And I think at the time it was like muscle milk was the big thing. You get muscle milk, whatever, monster milk. I remember one time I was drinking it and then I had like this reaction. And like I had like a little swelling or something weird, and it freaked me out. I was like, yo, what is going on? So in my mind, oh no, I'm allergic to protein shakes. So I got to shut everything down. I made my own diagnosis. This is a problem, right? So it happened again, and I'm like, all right, let me make an appointment and see if I can get to the bottom of this. What can I do? So I get Dr. Perlman's information, one of the best, allergists in this Jersey City. I'm like, all right, I'm going to Dr. Perlman. So we go in there. So I'm like, look, doc, here's what's going on. I think I have a protein shake allergy. I'm very convinced it only happens when this, this criteria, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So he's like, all right, do me a favor, bring that shake in. And I'm like, he's like, I don't think it's that, but you bring the shake in. I'm like, doc, I'm telling you, I've done the, the research. It's only this. So he brought it in. He goes through this extensive testing. He got my arm. He's pricking me with all these things. He's showing me all my individual reactions. See, you're not allergic to this. You're not allergic to that. He's doing it scientifically and showing me. So I'm like, and then he said, look, I'm going to take a little bit of the protein shake that you got. We're going to swab it on your arm. You're going to leave the room. I got something just in case it does happen. Don't freak out. And, if you have a reaction, we're ready. We're prepared for that type of situation. So again, I'm looking at my arm. The minutes are going past, nothing's happening. And he's laughing at me. He's like, Cog, I told you, like this, it's not that. So then we get to the bottom of it. And he's like, look, through all the science and all stuff, he said, basically what it is that your autoimmune system is a little weird, a little different, a little sensitive than others. So what he was showing me was that those bumps or those reactions is your white cells fighting with each other, thinking that it's a foreign entity causing this. I'm like, so he's breaking it down. So I was like, well, how do we fix it? Like, well, I'm going to be on this new drug now. What's the resolution? He was like, bro, you're going to go to over counter. You're going to go to a pharmacy. You're going to get this thing called cetirizine. And it's an all day allergy thing. He said, anytime you have it, you just take it. You have a reaction, you take it. Solve this thing instantly, bro. This guy is a genius. And it was just so funny the way he handled me, because he's literally a comedian. So he's laughing at me, but in a playful way. He's like, okay, this is what you think? All right. And like, he's just breaking it down. So he's awesome. And then the second thing that he solved, which was really amazing, this is what I knew this guy was next level. I'm a 70s baby, right? All my life, I was told, you are allergic to penicillin. My mom was like, it's on my birth certificate.
Yeah.
Penicillin allergic. Do not give this patient or else. Right. So anytime I go to doctor, no penicillin, right? And the medicine, okay, yep, we got it in your file. Don't worry, Cog. Okay, cool. So I remember one time I came back to him just as a follow-up with Dr. Perlman. And I'm like, all right. And I'm like, I forgot what came up. And I was like, no, you can't give me that, doc, penicillin. He was like, really? So I was like, he's like, does something happen? I said, well, I don't know. It's been so long, but this is what, I said, it's literally on my birth certificate. So he went through his testing and he's like, I'm going to shock your mind right now. So he's like, we're going to give you penicillin. I'm like, no, what are you doing? I was like, are you crazy? I'm going to die. Like, my throat's going to, like, I was freaking out. I was like, he's like, listen, we're going to do the science here. I'm going to show you something. Basically, in the 70s, there was these studies that I guess the science was older that a lot of people were getting misdiagnosed. So everybody's saying that penicillin would cause this reaction.
Holy shit.
And he showed me the documents, the thing, and he did the test. He was like, you see, all this life, all this time, you could have been getting stronger medication to solve your issues, but because of this misdiagnosis, and he brought the charts and the information, and we did the testing, and boom, I'm like, oh, I'm not allergic to penicillin. Like, It was wild.
He was a wizard.
Bro, he is amazing. So shout out to Dr. Perlman. Again, one of the greatest ever. And the last shout out I want to give out is Dr. Scarpa. And Scarpa is my rheumatologist. And
I should say, I get a kick out of the name drops.
Yeah, so we got to drop them. You got to go. If you're in the area, go holler at them. These are the best doctors I have ever encountered in my life. Now, again, Scarpa, rheumatologist, arthritis, young cog. I was in the sports. I played basketball, I was the athletic dude, right? So this is what kind of derailed my sports career. And, I would just get these heel spurs. Oh my God, so much pain, joints, elbows, everything. And what I learned about him is the power of consistent blood work, doing your blood work all the time, and he would get to the bottom of what's going on. So yeah, he found the wonder drug for me and all the other things that didn't work. I learned about my inflammation level and all these different things. And the last thing I want to shout him out is just that one thing about the doctor business that you will learn is, let's be honest, it's a little bit of a hustle. And a lot of them want you to keep coming back. A lot of them will try to extend things for as long as they can.
Sure.
And one thing about this guy that I have to give him his credit is that during the course of, I've been with him for like maybe over close to 10 years. You go through different parts of your life. Financially, you got a job, you don't got a job. Financially, things happen, every single time. Don't worry about it. Like, I'm going to give you these samples. Like the dude that's going to work with you when you're going through a tough spot, as opposed to knocking out your pocket like, oh, well, just what you got to do. This is how much it costs. You know what I'm saying? Kind of thing. And like, he's the realest, man. And especially with the insurance game, like, don't worry, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put in an order for 3 of those in advance before your insurance run out. I got you. Like, real, you know what I'm saying? So again, I just wanted to bring this now, open up to you guys. I just wanted to shout out the medical community because I don't feel they get enough love. So again, you can go the opposite route because there's some terrible doctors too.
Oh yeah,
horrible. So I got to go with you, Matty, because I feel like your journey is very interesting, and I feel, what's that term, Dag, we call it? What is it? Is it hypochondriac, or what's that term when you're very concerned about your medical type of reaction?
Yeah.
Hypochondriac. I feel you got both of you two have a little bit of that.
I do have that.
I was definitely 2015 to like 2019. I was really bad for a while. Like I was like, I now it lives on me as like a conscious thing, but like I was like almost afraid of my own fucking shadow at one point, dude. Like, so yeah, I didn't
know this about you, Matty.
Yes, you too share this.
Yeah. I used to be like, I still get little bits of it now. Like when I get anxiety, like my chest will tighten. And I'll think like, oh, I've been sitting a lot. Like, am I starting to develop health issues because I'm like working too much? Like, that's where my head goes. Like, so I still have a little piece of that living on inside me for sure. And I think it always will.
Yeah, so what's your experience with the doctor game?
I want to do best first. This is like a whole health is wealth segment when you really think about it. But yeah, yes, I think best doctor, I'll go with my primary care physician that I met. So I grew up with one, and then I went to a children's medical group where once you turned, I think 21, they could no longer take care of you and I. Like this guy was like kind of what you did, Cog. Like he understood me as a person. He knew like I was a worrier, and he was like, look, here are the facts. Like you're good. Like you're worrying. And he helped bring me down to earth a lot. That's where I started to come out of that phase a little bit more. He was fantastic, but after that, it's the worst feeling is when you develop that good relationship with your doctor. There's that level of trust and understanding. And you're like, fuck, I got to go find someone else. So I go through a couple recommendations. No one's quite hitting like the OG, but then I find this other one, and I went there because one of the things that ailed me during the pandemic was my right elbow. It was like my arm was always tingling, the whole arm, right arm, just always tingling, going numb. So obviously right arm, mouse hand, like just was that awful to work through. I couldn't work out because like I was like, is something pinched? Like I don't know what's going on. It's just been like this for months, and it's not just constant. Like it would come up back and forth in waves, but I would try like, I have carpal tunnel. I'd wear like sleeves, and that would provide like very brief relief. At times I'd wake up, my whole hand would be numb. It was like really frustrating. So I would go to specialists for my hand. I'd go for specialists for everything. And they're like, oh, try Voltaren. I'm like, okay, I'll try Voltaren. They're like, it's applicable, for those who don't know, basically Advil, but it's like topical. So you can like specify an area. And I still use it to this day. Like my left shoulder's been bothering me, and like just put a little there. It can help with that sort of stuff. So they're like, try that. Doesn't work. Nothing's working. And so I go to this, I finally find this new primary care physician. I go there and tell him my issue. And he's like, try turmeric. He's like, you see how my pinky's like this right now. He's like, I played college football growing up. And he's like, I busted my pinky. He's like, I can do this because I take turmeric. He's like, if I don't, this thing locks up. He's like, it's inflammation in your body. He's like, try it. For me, I was like, this is the perfect solution because it's just natural. If I'm always a little wary of medicine, not in the, I'm a big believer in medicine, but I'm wary of the dependence of medicine. Like I don't want to put, a seal over like a leaking hole in the ship, right? Like I really want to get to the root of it as naturally as I can first before I go into medicine, as I'll get into with worse doctors. But I tried this thing, and dude, I don't know if there's been a human in my life now I haven't recommended turmeric to, because it got rid of my problems immediately. And when I stopped taking turmeric at one point when I was going to the gym last year and lifting a lot, started to come back. And I was like, oh, got away from myself, took that again, boom, no problem. So I'm a big believer in it, bro. My inflammation goes away completely. It keeps me nimble and loose. So it's a really big, important part of my health. And I never would have thought of it. No doctor would have suggested it or tried it. And yeah, he's just guided me through a lot of those types of speed bumps. That was like one of the worst I dealt with. The other, as I talked about and documented extensively on Defining Duke, as Cog and I did for many a Health is Wealth segment, was my chronic swaying. For those who don't know, I dealt with this since the day I got engaged, which was in 2022, up until the start of this year, where like your head, I would define as like on a swivel. Like you're just kind of like always rocking the boat a little bit. No matter what you're doing, it makes it hard to focus. You're always like a little distracted because you're always in motion, and it can get so bad that you'll lose balance sometimes. And so like it made like even exercise, not like if I'm on my Peloton, I'm really high up. If I lose balance, I'm going down. That my feet are tied to this thing. If I am on a walk or a run, I don't want to risk losing balance and like tripping and hitting my head on the ground. It was such a deterrent where all I wanted to do was just plant myself in my seat, where at least I was locked down and nothing could happen to me. Right. Because it just became like I was sometimes worried to drive. Like it was such a deterrent. And I, went through it for such a long while. And I just didn't know what it was. At first, I thought it was because I went vegan for a year. And I was like, oh my God, is it because I just like fucked my whole body up with my diet? Like, did I need meat more than I realized? So I went pescatarian first to kind of reintroduce stuff to my body. And then I went back to meat and was like still hanging around. I start going to see doctors, and I went to one, and he was like, we think you have vestibular migraines, which is basically a form of migraine you get without any head pain. And he's like, this causes swaying. He's like, we're going to put you through a series of tests, and we're going to see how it all goes. He's like, typically people with vestibular migraines do not tolerate these tests. He's like, we're also going to do an MRI, and Cognito I've been through the coffin. And so I had to get an open MRI, which is just like the best thing I have ever discovered, because I just got to sit there and watch an episode of Law and Order SVU, and I was like, life is so good right now, man.
Oh, Matty, you're claustrophobic too.
I must have a little bit of it in me. Yeah. I didn't know it, Dag, until I was laying on the thing and they slid me in, and I was like, oh, you want me? This thing is like on my face. You want me in here for like 40 minutes?
Don't move.
Yeah, don't move.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, open. I tell people, if you have MRI issues,
which
I didn't know I had, open MRI was like the godsend for me. I was like, God, did it save me, because I couldn't do it. I'm usually a very good patient. I freaked out though. I was like, she started to slide me in. I literally was like, whoa. I couldn't even sit up to get out, bro. I was like, how do I get out of this if they So like all the fear took over. All the anxiety took over.
Did you have to wait a long time for the open?
Yeah, I had to wait a couple months.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, I did. And then they actually moved my appointment on me. They moved me back a month. And that was the frustrating part, is when I finally was about to get answers, because that was like the last leg. But they put me through a bunch of tests, and I couldn't tolerate them. Like one of them was to trigger like something in your inner ear. Literally unbelievable that this exists, by the way. they had at first you like lay down with like headphones and they're like, we're gonna move your head, we're gonna do this and that, and they're just checking like positioning. Are you swaying at all? No. Okay, they turn off the lights in the room, they put on goggles, we're going to do these things with your eyes to trigger motion, and it kind of records your eye movements, and so they're seeing if there's anything connected between my eye and my like inner ear balance. Doing pretty good with that. They're like, okay, last leg. They're like, we're going to check the pressure in your ear. And so I'm like, okay, sounds good. What do we do? Let's just lay on your back, and she takes out like a fucking air pressure needle and is like, I'm going to put this in your ear. It's going to blow hot air and cold air. We're going to do both these cycles twice in each of your ears.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, for how long? 2 minutes. Okay. Now I'm thinking it's going to be a light whisper, like, nothing crazy, mildly uncomfortable. I have never gotten more upset in a doctor's office when they were blowing it in my fucking ear. And this was round 1, cold air. They're just, and by the way, this machine's like a lawnmower, dude. It's like,
loud as hell.
So it's going. And I get maybe 20 seconds in, and it's just rattling my cage. Like I can literally feel the swaying happening. And I am so deeply uncomfortable. I don't know how to describe it. That I had to like, I'm not like this usually, but I had to like rip this woman's hand off of the, I was like, I had to shove her off basically because it was that like alarming. So I go through all that. I clearly couldn't finish it. The next test was, now I have like a built-in fear. Like this thing has traumatized me now. The next test, I'm like, all right, they're like, it's much easier. I'm like, okay. So I go in for the next one a couple weeks later. So I'm in this like seat, and they're like, okay, we're going to sit, you're going to tie you down and we're going to like rotate the chair, tilt the chair. and it's like a medieval chamber thing. Worst thing is back to the MRI triggering, right? You're in this chamber that they close the fucking door on and you're tied down. So I'm sitting in the dark being moved on. I'm like, can't you guys leave the door open? Like, is that cool? They're like, well, we can't track your eye movement if you're not in the dark. So I'm like, you guys just want to fuck me up for like 5 minutes straight? Are you guys out of your damn minds? I was like, I
get it.
So I that one I did refuse to do. So go back to the doctor. We have enough data to assess that something is clearly wrong with inner ear balance of some kind, maybe. Right? Like I gave them enough with the parts of the test I did pass. Just there's certain things with like the inner ear parts of it that they couldn't diagnose. So this guy is looking at it. He's like, yeah, like based on what we have here, I feel very confident. Like you have vestibular migraines. Or I think you have vestibular migraines. He's like, so here, he's like, here, I'm going to put you on this medicine here. Just to see how it works. I'm like, what do you mean just see how it works? Like I said, like, what, I forgot the name of the medicine. I apologize. But he was just like, yeah, it's going to be, we're going to give you a dosage, like I think 25 milligrams or something like that. And, we'll see how it goes. What the fuck does he mean? Like, we're just going to like, just wing it. Cause this is medicine for your brain. He's like, we usually give it to people who are like depressed and anxious. Right away, my alarm bells go off. I'm like, I don't want to take that risk because I know what usually comes with that medicine. So I look up, he's like, there's no side effects. I'm like, okay, I don't believe you. I look up the side effects, a lot of people were saying was like numbness, in terms of like emotional numbness, you're not as sharp, you're like very dull. And I was like, I need to be sharp as a fucking razor to do what I do, bro. Like if I'm sitting here podcasting for how many hours and I'm just like numb from my fucking medicine, like that's not quality of life. That's not going to work at all. Right. That's just not even for my way of living, just in general. That's not solving the problem. You're just numbing me. And that really lost my trust with him because he's like, you just go ahead. Like, I think it'll work. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I get that I didn't complete every test, but like, this is your answer, is to immediately just like, you do what I think is wrong with doctors and immediately just throw shitty medicine at me, because people who have vestibular migraines say they always throw crappy medicine at you before they move you up to things like Botox, things that really solve your problems in a potentially healthier way, without hooking you on medicine. But you have to try it first and then move up that level. It's like, I'm not doing that. So it hung with me for a while. I did an elimination diet. And then I ended up after that, going on a vacation with Laylee And when I came back, I realized I think a lot of it was induced by just extreme bouts of stress that I put on myself. Because since then, and the amount of time I do try to take off, weekend conscious, maybe sometimes extend to a 3-day weekend, getting extra help from editors. Just, I don't have good balance yet, I'd say, but much better balance where it is like not really a major factor, but it comes back. Like I've been really stressed this month because of the reviews I've been doing, and we're nearing the end of the year for our game. And so there's some things we got to check off there, and a lot of meetings, and we're preparing videos for the holiday break on top of what we're recording like each day. So podcasts, of course, for this, it's a lot. So I'm just like, it's starting to come back a little bit, and that's what you learn about it. But I don't like that I had to figure that out myself, right? There was no real guidance from the doctor on that, and usually my go-to. I had a really good gastroenterologist as well. That is a huge one as well for me, so that was good. But yeah, I don't have, outside of that, that was like my real big traumatic medical story. I don't, but shout out to my primary care physician. The only thing he got wrong was when I started dealing with that. That's when he's like, "You need more water." I'm like, "Dude,
you the king of that, yeah, bro. You the water king."
I was like, "Are you sure about that, brother?"
Nobody beat you on water, bro. That's a fact. Yeah. Nice. So dang, man, I'm curious. OG, you've been through a couple of doctors, and I'm assuming varied experiences, so wherever you want to go with it, as far as best or worst doctors or worst experiences.
Yeah, great topic. I think I like hearing Matty's anecdote about turmeric, because my doctor, shout out Dr. Blackman, she's a white woman.
A white woman.
For a little
Blackman,
iron,
white woman.
Dr. Blackman is a white woman. She's the best. And this is not about her today, but she put me on. I'll do anything she says. She's the greatest. She's only 10 years older than me. We have like a real camaraderie. She's a lot of fun. She never alarms. She's very calming.
Yeah.
Yep. But she put me on, I'll do anything she says, because I just trust her implicitly. But she put me on a turmeric, ginseng, apple cider vinegar supplement, like a daily vitamin. And I really didn't know what it was for. But I know those are good things. So now I have a little insight into that. And I like hearing about doctors like Dr. Blackman and Dr. Perlman, because I understand what it's like for them in this day and age. Like, we're in this era of their insurance being through the roof, and they have to see a high volume of patients just to be, just to stay in the black. And they could be in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. There's a lot of pressure with the drugs and that, that sort of thing. So for a doctor to be truly good at their job and attentive, like Cog was saying about Dr. Perlman, for instance, and to be present and to be knowledgeable and to show that level of care really means a lot in this day and age. So it's nice to have good doctors. I wanted to have a funny story initially when Cog sent over the topic about bad doctors. And I was like, you know what? I think I've just been really fortunate. Even with the kids, like, we've always had good medical doctors, dentists and stuff. And then I remember the best story of my childhood involving a doctor. It's an orthodontist, but I'm going to count it.
Yes, go.
We had this orthodontist growing up. His name was Dr. Cohen. And I remember him being a really obnoxious dude, like really just rude, always seemed to be in a foul mood, always was in like a foul temper, would like be rough as he was handling you. Like if you wanted your head turned to the side, like he would do it kind of in a, he was definitely completely obnoxious to the point of like, even as a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, whatever my span of having braces was, recognizing that even as a little kid, like he's just kind of a jerk. Like Dr. Cohen's kind of a jerk. And my sisters, who also went to him and also had braces, had the same experience with him. Colin was the only one born with good teeth. So Colin never even went to the orthodontist when he was a kid. So he missed this guy. But I do remember him being like, was always uneasy in his office because he just wasn't a pleasant man. And I don't know. I guess I was still, maybe I had my braces off and I was kind of in the retainer stage, and I would lose my retainers all the time. God bless my parents. They put up with a lot of shit from me. Like I lost like 7 retainers or something. I guess really why it turns out I didn't know any of this as a kid. I found all this out in my 20s, but I do remember one day, seemingly on a dime, Dr. Cohen being very, very pleasant. There was a complete personality change from there on out. And maybe I was still going through the orthodontic stuff post braces. And maybe my sister Dana, who's the next one down, she was kind of in the throes of braces. So we were in there. I guess the first thing to know of why he was probably in bad spirits all the time was, I guess, my parents didn't have a lot of money growing up, but because my dad was a New York City firefighter, they had really good health insurance, really good dental insurance. So I guess we got our braces, all our orthodontics for pennies on the dollar. And he didn't like that because it wasn't very proper. I guess that's so the story goes. I didn't know any of this as a kid, but I do remember that day of that personality shift and him having a very sunny demeanor all of a sudden. And I just, it was one of those things I remembered, but I just thought it was strange that Dr. Cohen had a change of heart. He's just a completely different person now, and never asked about it again. Sometime in my 20s, I found out, well, that was because he made my mom cry once. She didn't cry in front of us, but he was so rude to her that, and apparently my mom would have to hide stuff like this from my dad because he would fly off the handle.
Flip out, yeah.
But she cried one night telling my dad about Dr. Cohen. So my dad was like, oh, really? So I guess that week, not even saying he was going to do anything, just kind of taking it all in and internalizing it, he went and paid Dr. Cohen a visit. And my dad did do stuff like this. And apparently walked in. The secretaries were like, oh, Dr. Cohen's busy right now. Just walked right back behind the desk into the back room and went in and cornered and sort of, my dad said I didn't put my hands on him because I didn't want it to be an assault, but he walked him up against the wall with his chest. And my dad said he was my dad was in like overalls and work boots. And so like he was filthy. I don't know what he was doing that day, but he obviously wasn't in Brooklyn because he wasn't fighting fires that day. Maybe he was doing a side job.
He started fires.
And instead, like, if you ever talk to my wife like that again, I'm just going to kill you, basically. And from that point on,
fix your demeanor.
That was what happened. But I just never knew it because we were kids. But I do remember that very distinct shift. Dr. Cohen was always the nicest dude. Like, it was like night and day. Like, he was so obnoxious to being like so pleasant and telling jokes. Like, it was a whole thing. Like, my dad really scared him. Apparently. Which I think is like the best story. And it's also like so ironic when you look at me and Colin, especially me, and just see how far from the tree that apple fell. Like, not threatening. There's no way, even if I wanted to threaten somebody, my dad is so, I mean, he's 6'3". He was like really physically.
I remember. I can totally visualize this because not to interrupt you, because I remember meeting your dad and I see this demeanor and I was like, okay, I get it. Yep. And then everybody loves your mom, right? So your mom, everybody's going to make Mama Moriarty cry. Like, we got a problem. Like, this is the nicest woman in the history of women. So I already know his pull up, your dad's pull up to that situation. Oh, this was legendary. I'm sorry. This is a great story. Continue.
I mean, it was unbelievable. And it's so funny. Yeah, he was so reserved. Like, and that was his whole MO. Like, he would never, if he let on to my mom and she asked him not to do anything, then he wouldn't have been able to do it. So he always had that quiet way about him. But even as a kid, just knowing like, all right, you don't cross dad. Like, you don't misbehave when dad's away, because when he comes home, there's going to be hell to pay, type of thing. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. It was a different time.
Oh yeah.
My dad was strict, so I knew, but he handled Dr. Cohen. So shout out to Dr. Cohen. I'm sure he's long gone now, but he could have been gone a lot sooner had he talked to my mom like that again.
Ooh, yeah. No,
so that was a fun story because, there was like a 10-year moratorium where there was no explanation for that. And that light bulb of being like in my mid-20s of being like, oh Jesus, that's what happened. And then being able to connect 2 and 2 and put it all together.
That's awesome.
All right. So that was good. But I got to shout out my doctor that I grew up with, my pediatrician. Because he really set the tone for how I feel about doctors and people in the medical profession. He's the earliest guy I could trace that back to. And his name was Dr. Mario J. LaPera. Dr. Mario for short. And he was just, dude,
That's amazing.
I love the names.
Dr. Mario. He was
love it.
The most, if you just picture like ASMR, very Bob Ross, very calming demeanor way before any of this stuff was a thing. He was the most calming presence. Like, he was the adult I felt the most comfortable with, even more so than my parents and my grandparents and people that I was genuinely comfortable with. I spent a lot of time with. He was the most calming. He could do anything. He would, if he booster shots and getting the needle and stuff like that, you never worried about it with him.
Gotcha.
You know, he was so soft spoken. He made everything feel like it was gonna be fine, even when you were a little bit worried. I was kind of an anxious kid, so he kind of soothed the savage beast a little bit. And he always had, it was the 70s and 80s. He always had a cigarette. He had a cigarette in the examination room, and he had a cigarette in his office when he was doing the post visit, thing with my parents.
So
always had a lit up
days.
cigarette.
Yep. So 70s.
Always smoked. Very well dressed, always smelled good. I'm not sure what scent he wore, but he had that very distinctive smell of his cologne. And I honestly, dude, he could walk into the examination room with a needle, a hypodermic needle the size of a lance. And I'd be like, whatever, dude, like, just do your thing. He was just that guy, If I ever heard him even raise his voice above normal, I think I'd be shocked, let alone to picture him angry. Like, I don't think he even had, he was one of those dudes, one of those rare people that didn't even seem to have that setting. Like, he was just there was just something about him. His, even identifying that as a little kid, I mean, 5, 6, 7 years old, to be like I couldn't articulate it then, but the charisma and the confidence and just, being that, again, just having that skill of being that, he really kind of embodied what a healer is to me. Not just because he was, a pediatrician and medically trained and all that thing and super smart, but just his whole bedside manner.
I was just about to say, yeah,
everything you could want in a doctor. I mean, he really set the tone for everybody who I would know in my life and Helene's life and the kids' life as far as doctors go. He was always the bar. And I don't think anyone's ever quite met it. But it was just like, talk about being good at what you do. And he loved my dad. It was weird. Like, I went through this really strange blip in my career, my animation career. It was like the first time, Cog and I were just talking about this as far as work, trials and tribulations. But right somewhere between getting engaged and getting married, I was still living in New York. I was still on the island. I'd just gotten laid off from a job. And I was working at a supermarket temporarily. And he would come in. Dr. LaPera would come in. He was old at that point. I was, I guess, 23, 24 years old, 25 maybe. And we would get to talking, and he would always ask about my dad. He loved my dad, but this was post 9/11. So I remember the first time running into Dr. LaPera post 9/11, he was very concerned about my dad.
Absolutely.
How's your dad and everything? And just a look of relief when I was like, he's fine. His firehouse got hit hard. It hasn't been easy, but he's okay, type of thing. So I was able to even see him later in life. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, his son, Dr. LaPera's son, took up the mantle and continued his practice.
Wow.
His practice was so, like, I grew up, I think you guys know, whoever listening doesn't know, we grew up pretty far east on Long Island, like just west of the Hamptons. So pretty far out there. His office was close to Queens in Nassau County, way west where my parents grew up. So it was like a 50 mile trip just to go see our pediatrician, who we all had through the years. So that was a testament. That was the whole day. There was no taking us out of school. We missed the entire school day when we had to go see Dr. LaPera, but my parents would never dream of going anywhere else. And he was the greatest. I'm not sure when we finally lost that dude, but he was I just remember him being so, such a great, I never cared about going to the doctor. It was always kind of a treat.
Yeah.
Always had the same office, always had the same staff. His nurse, Sandy, was with him for years, like 25 or 30 years. It was like a little family in there, and I could tell you just from growing up with my kids were born in 2007 and 2010, both teenagers now. And even them growing up so many years later, decades later, it's not the same. A lot of these pediatricians are in practices, 3 or 4 of them in a group practice, because it's more, I guess it's better for them monetarily. And there's a little bit of a distance with getting to know doctors. A lot of them left the profession when my daughter was young because of the whole insurance thing, especially in Pennsylvania. It was bad. So to have somebody have a pediatrician of growing up in the 70s and 80s that really kind of felt like an integral part of the family. Everybody knew them. My aunts knew him. My grandparents knew him. It was like, he was like part of the family. He knew us out and out, from being an infant to when you finally leave the pediatrician. It's what is it? 16, 17, when you finally move on to the big kid doc. But, yeah, man, Dr. Mario,
Salute, Dr.
number
Mario.
one, dude.
Oh, great story. No, I love the experiences. I'm like your point about in reference to, the doctor office. I think that's a big part too. Sometimes, in my opinion, some doctors are failed by their offices or their secretaries or their help. And I've had the flip side where it's like it's just a negative experience just trying to get a hold of someone or following the call.
Yeah.
Bro. So I mean, something I ain't gonna shout out David Shame. Some offices they are bad. Like some are really,
man, those were the worst. Like when I had my elbow issue, neurologist, it was like, we'll see you in a year. I'm like, a fucking year, dude. Like my arm's gonna be falling off by that point. What the hell do you mean a year? So
yeah, it's brutal scheduling and stuff like that, and just that kind of stuff. So I like what you said, Dave, because when you have that great experience and it cultivates resonates the whole office and the decorum and the way you're treated, and it's like a family thing kind of when they see you. So it's important. People don't realize how important, especially bedside manner as well, helping calm you down before something major. Because I know I'm very guilty of coming in with my own knowledge of what I think the situation is.
You
because I'm so smart. And it's like, that's why I shouted Parliament out, because it was just like he would just handle me with kid gloves, but in a funny way to just calm me down and get me to the correct conclusion of what's really going on. I think that's important.
That's a special skill. I mean, think about being a doctor. I think about it a lot because I don't know why, because don't even get it twisted. I'm not smart enough to be a doctor, but I do think back and think of the one profession that I think I would have been good at. And just from a personality standpoint, it would have been doctor. Again, not even close to being bright enough. So I don't have both things. Mm-hmm. But think about being a doctor. One of the most important things. I was just saying this to somebody the other day. Law enforcement, teachers, and people in the medical profession, doctors and nurses, probably arguably the most important jobs, right? Mm-hmm. And to be good at the hard jobs, difficult jobs, very hard to be good at those jobs. But it's really important to be good at them, because you could accept my plumber is mediocre, right? My grocer, not the best. The doctor, you want the doctor to be good, very important.
Oh yeah.
So when they're bringing it on all fronts, they're smart, they're committed, they have the bedside manner. If they have all the things, that's hard. But to have it, but it's such a special thing to be. Like, I can't even imagine a more fulfilling profession. I don't mean to turn this into a profession thing, but sometimes I think, I don't know if you guys could relate to this, my profession as an animator seems so indulgent sometimes. It's like, I was good. I was really good at doing this, and it's, this is the only thing I was good at, and it's fun. You know what I mean? I work in entertainment. It seems like very self-indulgent sometimes, whereas a doctor, that's a really important thing. That's a necessary thing, right? Mm-hmm. So I think about it on that. I really do put them up on a pedestal. And even a bad one, I think you got to give a pass to, because it's hard.
It is.
But when there's a good one, I don't think there's anything more admirable than being a good doctor, nurse, somebody in the medical profession. That's because, I know they could stand to make good money and all that kind of thing, but there's a lot of sacrifice in a profession like that. Yeah. Not only for the schooling and the education, forget it. I wouldn't even have gotten close, but just for that lifelong commitment of, you can never turn it off.
Yeah.
You got to be that thing at all times. And that's tough. So the good doctors out there, man.
Well said. Yeah, shout out to the good docs. Well, I'm satiated. So I'm glad to hear y'all experiences on that one.
That was fun. You think Dr. Cohen's still alive? You think the dentist, pediatrician, orthodontist died? I don't know.
He probably got some years shortened off his life the way your dad.
He looked a little grayer too.
Hey man, that was a funny story. I like that one.
I'm so grateful I was never in that position. Now that my kids are older, when they were young, or Helene was never in that. Because what am I going to do? You know what I mean?
I think about that.
I could say something bad about them on social media.
There were
10,000 Twitter followers. I mean,
like we're just tall, kind of lanky nerds. Like if someone did something lately, it's like, all right, I gotta navigate this intelligently because I know if hands start to fly, like I'm definitely rolling the dice on me coming out of this unscathed.
It's not easy, dude.
You know, make that business decision.
Let me ask you this though. I think
Yeah,
of my dad. You guys have seen him before. I
Yes.
think of his dad, my poppy, who was a very intimidating man. I mean, he was like, so I think about it in steps. It seems to be getting my dad was maybe a little diluted version of my poppy, and then I was a big step down as far as manliness. What is my son? I'm not so sure. He's a little young still. Now his son is it going to keep going like that, or can there be
the manliness gets whittled away down?
Could the manliness come back? That's what I'm wondering. Could there be a resurgence? Like was Poppy's dad more like me, and then Poppy was the begin? You know what I mean? Could it ebb and flow?
Or hard ass?
It can ebb and flow. Okay, there's still hope out there.
All right, my fellas, listen, I'm going to go to this last topic as I emailed you guys about. Just a fun one. I had a couple of ones that I was like, you know what? These are a little too serious. Let me take a page out of Micah's book. Let me see if I could come up with something a little more fun. And I thought of, all right, let me think of this. So I pitched it to the boys. I said, if there's a fantasy world in a work of fiction that you like, a book, a TV show, a movie, a video game, what fantasy world in one of those things would you choose? What one world? Middle Earth or the Star Wars universe a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Your favorite video game, whatever. And you know what? Maybe it's for adventure. Maybe it's for action. Maybe it's for danger, fun, peace and quiet, visual beauty, serenity. You want to hang out with your favorite characters. Could be for whatever reason. And you know what's funny is I pitched this to you guys. I was like, I don't even know what my answer is going to be because I'm always thinking I'm like Matty. I'm always thinking Star Wars. Everything's Star Wars.
Easy pick,
I'm old. I'm set in my ways. It's always been Star Wars. And I was thinking, it's a little too generic. And then it dawned on me. I said, you know what? You loved and you still love dinosaurs. The go-to answer for me would be Jurassic Park. 100%. If I could go back or be immersed in a world where I could actually see and be around actual dinosaurs, that would have to 100% be the answer. Now, if I'm getting my druthers, I get to kind of customize it a little bit. This would be a version of Jurassic Park, danger-free.
Yeah, the breakout doesn't happen.
Yeah,
there's no breakouts.
Okay.
There's nothing goes awry. This is just a Jurassic zoo, right? A zoo for dinosaurs. And then I thought, well, maybe can you play on it a little bit? And I'm sorry for saying this, but if maybe it would be the Jurassic Zoo, completely safe, but maybe option B would be, how do I mash this up with a little bit of like kaiju, Godzilla, think Pacific Rim, for instance, right?
Okay.
Where I could fight the dinosaurs in giant robot suits. Now, I don't really want to hurt the dinosaurs, but this kind of mashes up my love of dinosaurs and my love of anime, mecha, right? Mech.
Mm-hmm.
So could we do something in there where I'm kind of fighting the dinosaurs in these elegant Gundam-like robot suits? That would be enough for me. That would be my dream thing. And think genre too. You guys like westerns, you like sci-fi, you like traditional fantasy, sword and sorcery. You guys are big video gamers. Cog, I'll start with you. What was the one? If you had to choose one, maybe you have multiple ones, but if you had to choose just one, what would be the top one? And then take it from there.
This was more difficult than I thought it was going to be for me to think about this one. Because I was just like, okay, as a person, Lord Cognito, like I've always liked, medieval stuff. But then I was like, I don't want to really live in the time where people smell and hygiene is a little off and science is not there. So I'm like, that's out. I'm like, all right, you like the ninja. I'm like, again, it always came down to like science, technology, and needing modern things to be excited about. So a lot of these time periods that I romanticize or games that I romanticize, I don't necessarily know if I want to live in. So then I thought about it. I was like, okay, where would I want to be? And this would made me laugh. And I was like, I think it's the MCU. Now, hear me out. Okay. I know the MCU is terrible. Fix your face, Matty. I know the MCU is terrible right now. But I thought about it. I was like, why would I want to live there? I said, well, first of all, let's be real. The coolest thing is the discovery of having a fake power that as humans, we always want to elevate and be better than what we are. So if you had a superpower, right, how cool would that be? And the reason why I thought about the MCU is that obviously there's so much responsibility with having whatever power that you end up having. But there's so many damn heroes in their damn movies that, to me, like the chances of either being in even if I don't get a superhero power myself, being in proximity with one of these guys, right, or being able, through proxy, be able to get something. So, I just thought about it. I was like, all right, Spidey's in Queens, Cap's in Brooklyn, Daredevil's in Hell's Kitchen. Let me see, Luke Cage's in Harlem. I mean, at least if I don't have a power, being able to see these, quote unquote, giants or metahumans among men would be kind of interesting to me. Like or being cool with them. Like, imagine if Spider-Man is your friend. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know him, you interact with him, you see him when he pulled through. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of cool. It's kind of fun, like to be cool with someone who has these amazing abilities, and you are one of their best friends or someone. Because we never give credit to the, how like Daredevil has was it Foggy and the friend of the
sidekick. You want to be like Ned in Spider-Man? Like,
not that I want to be Ned, right? I would like to have the power. But if I don't have, how cool it is to be next. He is your homie. If you in a bind, he got you. There's some coolness.
I don't know. I feel like these superheroes are so, in all of these stories, they're like, right, Peter? And you turn around, he's gone because you see him run down the alley, spreading the shirt. I don't know. I feel like they always dip when you need them most. And it's like, well, hopefully he figures it out because it's about to be a terrorist attack now. So.
But what
who's
good?
Who's Miles Morales' friend? He's kind of like tech support too. He's kind of like the tech guy. He's always got the laptop out. He kind of helps from the sidelines.
Yeah, I forgot what you call it name, but yeah,
that's what I thought of.
Yeah, everybody's got their friend or whatever. But look, the goal is obviously to get a power yourself, and I think that to me is super dope. And I always love. There was a show that kind of did. Remember that show Heroes? I remember Heroes kind of touched on that. And there was a show regular guys just kind of getting, powers and stuff like that. I just always feel that discovery is always cool kind of thing. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Just throw me in the MCU somewhere. I'm either see one, become one, or, encounter and interact with somebody and be, deal with it through that way. But I'm curious with Matty, where you at with this?
Unfortunately, every universe I love is destroyed, depraved, diabolical. It's really a tough selection because it's Fallout's my favorite thing. Do I really want to live the stench that is Fallout? I like to play around in it, but I don't know if I really want to live in that world where everything's gone, right? My answer is very simple, though. I mean, it went to one place when I saw this, and it's Pokemon. I mean, it's pretty parallel to our world, but I am a huge animal lover. And one of the cool things with Pokemon is every creature is technically, you can domesticate it and they can help around the house or on the farm or whatever in different ways. And I just love the camaraderie that series supports between man and woman and animal. And I just think it's really great. I don't know. I just love the idea of I'm going to need a fire Pokemon because I live in this area where I need to burn a lot of things. I need to burn the coal or something like that. So I need a Charmander and I'm going to have this Charmander on the farm with me or something like that. Versus I need to cut down a lot of trees. Good thing I caught this Scyther. He's going to help me out and we're going to bond. It's a lot I'm a dog owner. So, I guess I'm halfway there, but I feel like the elevation of imagine I could just we have a black bear that shows up around our house.
Wow.
Often. And I'm just imagine if in our world I just go out and kind of fuck this thing up lightly and then just catch it. And it's yo, now you're gonna help me out around the house.
This sounds like Power World.
Yes, it does.
You try to enslave
Pokemon, you gotta hurt you fight them a little bit, right? So I send out Rufus and Forrest. I'm all right, boys, let's do this, right? And then they weaken the black bear, and I take out a Pokeball, I throw it, I catch the black bear. It's like, now he's domesticated, he's gonna help me out, and we're gonna have a black bear in the house. I think that's great. So I kind of like the idea of just melding that world of Pokemon into ours fully, you know? I don't know if what I said was mildly concerning anyone, but I do love the idea
it's great.
of just that creature interaction. Animals are so precious and special, so I want one of each.
Yes, it's gonna control.
But otherwise, yeah, like obviously you go to Star Wars because, like, you don't want to go into these worlds without peace, right? And like Star Wars, you can find pockets of peace anywhere. I would love to go to the Old Republic timeline, of course, that's my favorite, but it's a mixture of medieval at the same time. I should say it's not really medieval. It's like the weaponry is medieval inspired. It feels, lots of swords, like very few lightsabers. But it was a time. It was like very quaint, peaceful, and I would love to just like have a farm on Dantooine and just kind of cool it for a while, and then say, you know what, I'm gonna pack my bags. I'm looking to live large for a year or two. I'm gonna go to Coruscant now and just spend some time there. I want to pick up a job as a miner on Mustafar. Why not? Like, I just, our day trip to the supermarket is interplanetary travel in the Star Wars world. Like, that's great, man. So I'd love a little bit of that. Obviously there's the risks that come with that, but I know Star Wars is such a no-brainer pick, but how couldn't you? Right? Just the ability to go planet to planet with that level of peace.
Mm.
I feel like that's something I would love to see that in my lifetime. Just go to a different planet and just like visit for a while. Like, it's one thing to go to another country, but the idea of like another planet just expands so much more of what we can do. So yeah, Star Wars always just lights my fire in an exploratory manner. I'm looking around if there's any other worlds. Oh, Ninja Turtles, man.
Mm.
I
did think
you want to talk about a superhero group you want to be friends with? They have the sickest lairs. They're just fun to be around. They're humble, good familial energy. I want to be around that. I want to help them take down a Rokusaki. I want, that's I'm with them, man. I'm the Casey Jones of that group for sure.
Casey Jones of the crew.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that's one for sure.
All right, Turtles.
I think you unlocked the trick, Matty. It's era. It's time period, right? Because it would be really cool to be in Star Wars on Tatooine looking up at the Twin Suns. Would be pretty, or be on the moon of Endor in the forest with the Ewoks, but you got the Empire looming over you, right? So era is very important. Or you could be Middle Earth. You could be in the Shire. It's really beautiful and picturesque, but Mordor looms, right? The threat of Mordor looms. So a real utopia. Now you gotta really kind of involve and consider the time period. I like that. Or, New York City, even with the Ninja Turtles, it'd be great to have those 4 rounds, Splinter and everybody, but you got the Foot Clan to deal with.
That's true. That's
right.
True.
So it's like you're kind of trading one thing. You're getting to hang out with Mikey. That's awesome. But now you got to deal with these ninjas and the psychopath running around, trying to take over New York. But era, that's very important. Like New Republic, I got you on that. Yeah. That's very important.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, man. I mean, it's like any relationship. It's like, what are you willing to put up with? Like, do I love my turtles enough to put up with some bouts with the Foot Clan? Of course. Do I love my Pokemon enough to put up with some bouts with some erratic wildlife barging down my door? Of course. So it's like, what are you willing to put up with? Like Fallout, I love you with all my heart, but I'm not willing to put up with wasteland stench and rustic shack houses and rebuilding my place of living within the remains of like a crashed airplane. Like, no.
Yeah, no way.
We're okay.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Like the zombie apocalypse thing would be fun, but I would need some sort of guarantee that I'd be okay.
Yeah, right. Like I could shut off the simulation when I want to.
Yeah, like bro, it's just too demoralizing. Like it's just like, ugh.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
No hope. I'm like, I couldn't do that Walking Dead stuff. I'm like, man, you got to give me a little hope or a cure or something, or a safe space or an oasis somewhere. Like
there you go.
Yeah.
Well said, oasis. Yeah, and also, how exciting is it going to be if you know you're going to be okay?
Exactly.
Right? There's no real danger involved.
A little danger.
Right? Interesting. Yeah. It is a harder one Then, as I said, I submitted the topic to you guys, and I don't know what my answer is. It took me a while. I thought of some of my favorite video games, right? Like, I love Uncharted. I love the Uncharted series. I love where they go, but they're just going to, obviously exaggerated, but theoretically real places on Earth that are, on a grand scale. That would be pretty cool. But how much of that charm is just hanging out with Nathan Drake? You know what I mean? He's just a cool dude.
Hell yeah.
So, how cool is it to go back to a certain specific time period of Star Wars to hang out with Han Solo? He's the best. Right? So, I think the character, because I thought of Game of Thrones, love it.
Yeah.
Be so fun to hang out with Tyrion. But if you weren't in High Garden or King's Landing, do you really want to go anywhere else?
Exactly.
In that world? You know what I mean? Mm-mm. So, yeah, it's tricky. That's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. All right. Well, I'm satisfied, my friends. Listen, only 3 topics. That was a really brisk experience.
Yeah.
You guys got to let us know. I mean, we're coming in just under 2 hours before we do the outro. That's unheard of for Stelly.
That's unheard for Stelly. But I think we got our bars off. I actually loved it. I loved it.
You did? You enjoyed it? Well, let me go. We'll go around for goodbyes. Give me your thoughts on it, Cog. How give me your goodbyes, plans for the weekend. But tell me first, what were your impressions of doing this with just the 3 of us?
I like it because I think we could expound on the topics a little bit more. And to your point, sometimes when we have the 4, even though it's great having 4 different personalities, sometimes like there's one topic that doesn't get enough attention than the others. And I think with this one, especially with Matty's, we went down these great paths with content creation, reflection. I liked we had all these different avenues. So we got to explore them more. So I feel the topics get satisfied better in this format. Kind of thing. So
I think that's well put.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining me. I hope you're back on the show soon, Cog.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And get ready for the weekend and everything. But yeah, it's good to be back in Stelly.
Good. Nice. Mm-hmm. Good to have you. Matty.
Yeah.
Good to see you, my friend. It's been, I don't even know when the last time I actually did a show with you. It's been quite some time.
It has been some time, man. But it's good to see your face again. It was good to be on. Yeah, overall, I like what we're doing here. We do a lot of shows. I want to always keep in mind what the audience wants, but we do a ton of shows. And I will say keeping it brisk for a conversational show is sometimes really nice, because I will say when I block out this show, I literally say like nothing else is getting done today, because I just know the commitment that comes with Constellation or Summon Sign. Duke's been accounted for years now, but I do think on the host side of things, this will be, you'll probably get better energy because people are like, all right, like, it's like not 4.5 hours of the day gone. And I think that'll be really good for everyone involved. I think it'll produce like a better quality conversation. People, I think, will want to get more into the weeds of it all. But as for weekend plans, Dave, I got a good one lined up, man. And I got to know if you're here with me. We got some, I know you were at least the big Yankee head. How are you feeling about World Series today?
Yeah. LA tonight, baby.
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
So I don't know. Our Mets got bumped. Not too happy about that. But I don't know who I got to root for here. I don't know. But the game's on tonight. So feeling that out. Looking forward to that. Otherwise, great UFC card on Saturday.
Oh, yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, Tapuria versus Holloway. That's going to be amazing. I love Rob Whittaker. He's fighting.
Yeah.
So that's a great main and co-main. So I'm very excited for that card. So that's on the queue. Wrapping up this review. So got a lot of fun stuff lined up this weekend. Just going to be a nice weekend at home. I was out a lot last weekend for fall activities and all that fun stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice.
So lying low this weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. Got a lot of stuff on the docket. But Dave, are you watching any? I know Cog, you watch UFC, but are we watching the World Series? Like, what's the temperature? Yeah, I know you are, Dave, but Cog, like, where are you at with the World Series, right? Because it's like I love playoff baseball, but I'm like, I hate both these teams.
Yeah, it's kind of I would call them the enemies, but yeah, both obviously Dodgers notorious. We had, for always, winning and being the, always the biggest payrolls and stuff
West
like that.
West Coast Yankees.
Yeah, it's West Coast Yankees versus Yankees. Yeah, that's what this is. So there's part of me that I have a curiosity to see who he is, but I'll be honest, I have a vested interest though, because there you go. That free agent that you may be having next year. The Mets have expressed high interest.
Is that right?
Yes, they were like, hey, we are going after him. So just letting you know. So maybe I just tuned in to see, what that could look like.
You know what sucks?
The
I could
Mets
see him
outbid
being
the
really
Yankees on
successful
Juan
in
Soto.
Queens.
That would be wild.
Yeah.
Soto is unbelievable. Just really paying attention to base. I really, not even the whole year, I'll admit. I'll cop to that. Like since probably the All-Star break, since after the All-Star break, really that guy is special. The only reason you don't hear about him is because he's batting on the other side of Judge.
Yeah.
He is one of the most clutch hitters I've ever seen.
Dude, do you see have you ever watched like Dagan, have I told you about the John Boy Media YouTube channel where they do like breakdowns? You would eat this shit up, especially because you were like stat tracking and stuff. It's a sports media outlet that like was built with YouTube. And what they do is like they got their name known by doing breakdowns, and they literally will like most times it's comedic. Like they'll do lip readings for like managers fighting with umpires, and you get to see and hear in clear detail like what they are saying to each other. It's unbelievable the shit that these guys.
So cool.
It's very cool. But then they'll also they're like fantastic analysts, and they will like break down plays. Like Kai, you remember that play with Jesse Winker where he like rounded second and got caught in the middle? It's because I didn't realize at first. I'm like, Jesse, what are you doing, bro? They did a full breakdown of that play. He got juked completely by the outfielder who made it look like he was throwing to second because his body was facing that way. And I think he threw it to third instead of second, something like that. I forgot exactly how the play broke down, but they showed this and broke down like the body language and what Jesse bid on, which made him do the base running error that faked him out and that sort of thing. So
I've got to see this.
Yeah, John Boy, JOMBOY. Yeah, dude, you guys would both love it. That's like to me appointment content. Like whenever they post, and it's quick, by the way. It's quick.
Is it?
A long video for them is 8 minutes, maybe.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And if you want more, like they have a show called Talking Yanks. I listen to their Mets podcast sometimes. Shea Station. It's Jerry Blevins and Jolly Olive, Jolly Olive is like a baseball YouTuber.
Yeah.
So it's like a mixture of like the professional and the guy who's like the analyst and fan. And it's it's really good. So they represent like all angles of sports. Like you can find football in there, whatnot too. But
check it out.
They're really like a baseball analyst.
Baseball centric.
But my point was with Juan Soto is they did a breakdown of his at bat where he hit the I think it was like the game winning home run in the ALCS, and the way his like mannerisms are, like he'll catch a pitch and he'll look at the pitcher and just like nod his head like he's got him.
Incredible.
Like you can tell he's got him. Like he knows it's a game to him, and he's like, I'm waiting for that pitch, and he fucking cranks one 2 pitches later. Like you can see. It's these things that it made me love baseball on such a deeper level because you don't realize like there's a sportsmanship there, but how these guys play chess with each other, mentally and physically, it's unbelievable. And that whole channel opened that world up to me. I would not have known just how deep baseball goes beyond hurling a ball and hitting it if I did not watch this channel. But you guys,
that sounds amazing.
You guys should really check it out, especially because like Juan Soto, like we were saying, man, like you get to see guys like him and what makes them so different from like, I hate to say, but like Jose Iglesias, like, like kind of a streaky hitter.
Yeah.
Like you get to see why a guy like him is just so talented, so sought after. So
I haven't seen anybody that dangerous at the plate in a long time. You know he's going to hurt you, and he is relishing the competition with that head nod and everything. I've never seen anything like that. The confidence, even with 2 outs, it's like he just got up there. I mean, with 2 strikes, it's like he just got up there. He doesn't care.
Yeah,
he really genuinely doesn't give a shit.
I don't think I've heard you.
Going to hurt you.
I don't think I've heard your take on Shohei, because that was the first time when the Mets were playing the Dodgers where I like got to see Shohei like game after game.
Consistent,
and like that feeling that what you just described is what I thought of with him. Like this guy is a threat every pitch, and the fact that what was his stats against us? He was like, he had legit better than video game numbers
against the Mets in 04. Right?
Like I think
24.
it was something along the lines of like at one point like 17 for 29 in terms of getting on, or 21 for getting on base. Like he literally just never, like 4 outs in like in all of those at bats is unheard of. This guy is insane. So I don't know. I'm curious how he'll do against the Yankees pitching, but like. That guy,
we'll
I mean, seeing him and Soto go head to head, that's going to be
that's a good treat.
juggernaut.
Oh yeah.
I was really lamenting. I forgot I was dealing with two Mets fans here. I was kind of lamenting at first not having the Subway Series because that would have been fun. It's been a while.
Special. I know.
Would have been really fun. And especially with the Mets coming back from behind and having that run towards it would have been exciting.
So much fun.
And handling the Phillies and everything that came with that. But, I think a lot of people would say Judge Ohtani, but seeing Soto Ohtani is going to be fucking ridiculous.
Huge.
Well, Judge wasn't even very good.
No,
playoffs.
not in the playoffs.
Yeah, like this is the series for him to show up. Stanton has been amazing for you guys.
He's been great.
So it's really about those two and Soto and Stanton doing their thing. If they do, I think you guys will win.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
I think you guys got better pitching than Dodgers, so we'll see.
I think it's going to be but they got home field advantage, right? They're in LA now, starting out, so we'll see. I think there's a lot of parity, but it'll be definitely fun.
Yeah.
It's
going to be like the biggest market World Series in a while.
Oh yeah,
it's
like baseball loves this.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The
this.
owners are rubbing their hands together. I'm like, what? The two biggest markets are going.
That's exactly what they want.
This is what they drew up years ago, right? Because now it's like no Diamondbacks in the World Series, or LA makes it to the World Series during COVID. They actually get to cash in a dream World Series for them. So it's going to be huge.
No, that's well said. Yeah, there was a lot of it landed in an exciting place this year for sure. Yeah. But listen, that's our time, my friends. Patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access as always. And laststandmedia.store has the merchandise. Were you not entertained? For Cog and Matty, I'm Dagster Moriarty saying thank you as always for joining us. We'll see you next week. And until then, you'll just have to settle for some lesser podcasts. See you later, guys.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.